Hey there, and welcome to Crime for Sleep. I know you're having trouble falling asleep, so let me keep you company with true crime stories from around the world. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where did you first hear this one? If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's case. Crime 1, I noticed a strange stickiness around the edges of the fridge door. At first I thought it was just juice or something I spilled, but when I pried the rubber seal loose, a line of dried blood flaked into my fingers, not a smear, a trail. I started pulling and more came loose, bits of hair stuck in it too. I hadn't had guests in weeks. I keep to myself. That kitchen is always locked when I'm out. I checked the security camera I keep in the hallway. The memory card was missing. So was the paring knife I hadn't used in months, but the creepiest part, the ice trays were all empty except one. One cube was stained deep red. Frozen inside it, a sliver of fingernail. The silence in my apartment felt different after that discovery. Heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at that crimson ice cube melting in a glass bowl, watching the water turn pink around the edges. The fingernail fragment floated there, pale and accusing. I'd lived in this place for 3 years, same routine every day. Same locks, same keys, same habits. I'm methodical about these things. I have to be. My work requires precision, attention to detail. I catalog insurance claims, spending hours documenting damage, assessing evidence, determining what really happened versus what people claim happened. Truth has a texture to it, a weight. You learn to feel it. But this felt wrong in ways I couldn't catalog. I called the building super first. Maybe he'd been in for repairs, cut himself somehow. The voice that answered sounded tired, distracted. No, he hadn't been in my unit. No maintenance requests, no emergency entries. His breathing was shallow, like he was walking while we talked. I could hear traffic in the background, the distant hum of the city. The landlord's office was next. Same story. No authorized entries, no work orders. The woman on the phone had a slight accent I couldn't place. She assured me she'd check their records, but her tone suggested she thought I was being paranoid. Maybe I was. I started retracing my steps from the past few weeks. Work, home, grocery store, work, home. I don't socialize much, don't date, don't have friends over. My neighbors are strangers who nod politely in the hallway. We share walls, but nothing else. The blood on the refrigerator seal had dried in patterns that suggested movement, not a single cut or accident. Someone had pressed against it repeatedly, or perhaps struggled. The hair follicles were dark, coarser than mine. I sealed them in a plastic bag, the way I'd learned to preserve evidence at work. That evening I examined every inch of my apartment with the kind of methodical attention I usually reserved for fraud cases. The kitchen showed no other signs of disturbance. No bloodstains on the floor, no scuff marks on the cabinets. The missing knife bothered me most. It was a small one, barely used, but sharp. I remembered buying it at a department store, part of a set I'd never fully unwrapped. The security camera in the hallway had been my compromise with paranoia. I'd installed it after a break-in 2 buildings over. Nothing expensive, just a basic model that recorded to a memory card. But the card slot was empty, and I distinctly remembered checking it the week before. The tiny red light still blinked, mockingly, as if recording nothing at all. I called the police. The officer who took my report sounded bored. No signs of forced entry, no obvious theft, no immediate threat. They'd file a report, but without more evidence, there wasn't much they could do. His pen scratched against paper as he wrote, and I could hear him sighing between questions. Sleep became impossible. I kept thinking about the ice cube, about how deliberate that felt. Someone had taken time to freeze evidence, but evidence of what, and why leave it for me to find? I started staying awake, listening. My building has its own rhythm of sounds, the couple upstairs arguing in muffled voices, the dog next door scratching at the door, the elevator cables creaking as it moved between floors. But now I heard other things, footsteps in the hallway that stopped outside my door, the soft click of someone testing the lock, breathing that wasn't quite my own. The fingernail haunted me. I'd preserved it, photographed it, measured it. It was definitely human, definitely not mine. The nail bed had been torn, suggesting force, violence, but whose? And why had they left it in my freezer like some grotesque calling card? I began reviewing my case files at work with new eyes. Had I made an enemy, denied someone a claim they felt they deserved? My job involves saying no to people who desperately need yes. I sift through lies, expose fraud, determine when accidents are actually intentional. Maybe someone wanted to show me what real evidence looked like. The case that kept coming back to me involved a house fire. The homeowner claimed it was electrical, but the burn patterns suggested arson. I documented everything, taken photos, written a report that saved the company hundreds of thousands. The claim was denied. The homeowner threatened to sue, threatened to make me pay for ruining their life, but that was months ago. People threaten. They rarely follow through. But then I remembered the homeowner's hands, calloused with nails bitten down to the quick. One fingernail on the left hand was partially torn, a detail I'd noted because they kept picking at it during our interview. Their voice had been steady, but their hands betrayed them. They'd fidgeted, scratched, left tiny half-moon marks on the table between us. I pulled the file, read through my notes. The homeowner had asked detailed questions about my schedule, about where I lived, about my security measures. I thought they were just being thorough, trying to understand the investigation process, but now those questions felt different, predatory. The address on the file led me to a burned-out shell of a house, windows boarded, roof partially collapsed, but the garage behind it was intact. I parked across the street and watched. No movement, no signs of life, just the kind of stillness that comes with abandonment. I called the homeowner's number from the file. It rang twice before a voice answered, a voice I recognized but couldn't quite place. They said hello, then waited. I waited too. The silence stretched between us like a wire under tension. "I know you're there," the voice said finally. "I know you're watching." I looked around, suddenly aware of how exposed I was sitting in my car across from the burned house. The street was empty except for a few parked cars, but I felt observed, hunted. "We need to talk," I said. "We are talking about what you left in my apartment." There was a pause, the sound of breathing, then proof. "Proof of what?" "That you're not as careful as you think." The line went dead. I drove home through streets that felt unfamiliar, even though I'd traveled them countless times. Every car seemed to be following me. Every pedestrian seemed to be watching. The city had become a maze of potential threats, and I was lost in it. Back in my apartment, I double-checked every lock, every window. The ice cube had melted completely, leaving only water and that fingernail in the bowl. I flushed it down the toilet, but the act felt like destroying evidence rather than disposing of trash. That night I heard the footsteps again, slow, deliberate steps in the hallway. They stopped outside my door. I held my breath, listening, the soft scrape of metal against metal. Someone was testing my locks with tools, probing for weakness. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was dark, but I could see a shadow moving just outside my field of vision. Whoever it was knew about the peephole, knew how to stay hidden while still making their presence known. My phone was in my hand, finger hovering over the emergency call button when the footsteps retreated. I counted them. 12 steps to the elevator, the soft ding of arrival, the whisper of doors closing. I never called the police. What would I tell them? That someone had walked in my hallway, that I felt threatened by shadows, that a homeowner whose insurance claim I denied might be playing psychological games with me. The next morning I found another ice cube in my freezer. This one contained a small key, the key to my apartment, a spare I'd hidden under a fake rock outside the building entrance. Someone had been watching me long enough to know my habits, my hiding places, my routines. They'd been inside my apartment repeatedly. They'd taken the knife, the memory card, pieces of themselves to leave as evidence. They turned my home into a crime scene, and I was both the investigator and the victim. I changed the locks, installed new cameras, started varying my routine, but the feeling of being watched never left. Every shadow held potential threat. Every sound suggested intrusion. The truth is, I may never know exactly what happened in my kitchen. I may never understand why someone chose to involve me in their personal horror story. But I know now that the line between investigator and investigated is thinner than I ever imagined. Sometimes when I'm reviewing case files, I wonder if I'm looking at evidence of my own crime, if the homeowner succeeded in making me complicit in something I don't fully understand, if the blood on my refrigerator seal was mine all along and I just don't remember how it got there. The ice cubes in my freezer are clear now, but I check them every day just in case. Crime 2, it started when I applied for a mortgage. The bank told me my credit history was blank, not bad, just gone. When I asked for details, they printed out a file, name matched, address matched, but the life in the document didn't belong to me. It included accounts I never opened, jobs I never held, even a marriage certificate. There was a picture attached, same face, slightly older, same eyes, just colder. When I tried to report the error, the system flagged me as the impersonator. I thought it was a glitch until someone started using my social security number to apply for firearms licenses. I still get rejection letters in the mail for crimes I haven't committed yet. The woman at the credit bureau had fingernails painted the color of dried blood. She kept clicking them against her keyboard while staring at my identification. The sound echoed in the small cubicle, sharp and rhythmic like a countdown. Her breath smelled of stale coffee and something medicinal. She kept looking at me, then at her screen, then back at me. "This is unusual," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your file shows activity from before you were born." I leaned forward, the plastic chair beneath me creaked. The fluorescent light above flickered, casting shadows that made her face look hollow. She printed another page, more accounts, more addresses I'd never lived at, a loan application for a business I'd never heard of. The signature looked exactly like mine, but the handwriting felt foreign somehow, like watching someone else wear your face. Walking home, I noticed things I'd never seen before. The woman who lived 3 houses down always kept her curtains drawn, but today they were slightly open, just enough to see a silhouette moving back and forth. The mailman avoided eye contact. Even the neighborhood dog, usually friendly, growled when I passed. That evening I called the mortgage company again. Different person this time. A man with a nasal voice who seemed to know more about my life than I did. He mentioned a previous application I'd supposedly submitted. Different bank, different loan amount, but the same social security number, the same signature. He described meeting me in person. Dark hair, medium height, nervous laugh, all accurate, except I'd never been to that office. "You came in wearing a blue jacket," he said. "You kept checking your phone." I looked down at my blue jacket hanging on the chair. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking for answers you won't like." The next day I drove to the address listed on the marriage certificate. A suburban house with yellow siding and a garden that looked professionally maintained. Too perfect. The lawn was cut in perfect diagonal lines. No weeds, no fallen leaves. Even the mailbox gleamed like it had been polished that morning. I knocked. Footsteps approached slowly, deliberately. The door opened to reveal a woman about my age with short gray hair and tired eyes. She looked at me for a long moment without speaking. Behind her I could see family photos on the mantelpiece. In several of them there was a man who looked exactly like me, but wearing clothes I didn't own, smiling in places I'd never been. "You're not supposed to be here," she said quietly. "I think there's been some kind of mistake with my identity," I began. She stepped back, her hand tightening on the door handle. "He said you might come." "Well, who said?" But she was already closing the door. Through the glass, I watched her walk to the phone. Her movements were quick, panicked. She kept glancing back at the door while dialing. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, watching the house. The woman occasionally appeared at the window, always looking in my direction. Around what must have been dinner time, a police car drove slowly down the street. It didn't stop, but the officer inside turned to look at me as he passed. I recognized something in his expression, not suspicion, recognition. My phone rang, unknown number again. "You need to stop," the voice said. It was male, familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. "This isn't healthy for anyone." "Who is this? And you know who this is." The line went dead. I looked at the phone, at my reflection in its black screen. For just a moment, I didn't recognize the face looking back at me. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the woman's reaction, the photos in her house, the way everyone seemed to know something I didn't. I searched through old boxes in my basement, looking for documents, anything that might explain what was happening. In a dusty filing cabinet, I found medical records I didn't remember keeping, therapy sessions, prescriptions for medications I'd never taken, all bearing my name, my signature, but describing symptoms and treatments that meant nothing to me. The handwriting in the margins was mine, but the words were foreign. Patient continues to exhibit dissociative episodes. Memory gaps increasing in frequency. Recommended intensive treatment. I stared at the papers until the words blurred together. My hands were shaking. The basement suddenly felt too small, too quiet. I could hear my own breathing, rapid and shallow. Somewhere above me, floorboards creaked, but I lived alone. The next morning brought another rejection letter, this time for a passport application. The attached photo showed my face, but I was wearing a suit I'd never owned, standing in front of a building I'd never seen. My smile looked wrong somehow, too confident, too sure of itself. I went back to the credit bureau, same woman with the red fingernails. This time she looked nervous when she saw me. She kept glancing over her shoulder while pulling up my file. "There's been activity on your account," she said, her voice even quieter than before. "Recent activity." "What kind of activity?" She hesitated. "Someone accessed your file yesterday, made changes, updated the address, added new references." She leaned closer. "The person who made the changes, they had all your security information, everything." I felt cold despite the warm office air. Did they leave any contact information? She printed out a page and slid it across the desk. The contact information listed my own phone number, my own address, but at the bottom in the comment section, someone had written in careful handwriting, "He doesn't remember, but he will." Walking to my car, I noticed the woman from the yellow house standing across the street. She was watching me, talking quietly into her phone. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. She just stood there like she was waiting for something. That evening, I found a key in my mailbox. No note, no explanation, just a small silver key that looked familiar but didn't fit any lock I could find in my house. I held it up to the light, turning it over in my palm. It was warm, as if someone had been holding it for a long time before placing it there. The phone rang again, same unknown number. "Did you find it?" the familiar voice asked. "Find what?" "The key. It opens a storage unit downtown. Unit 47. You should go." "I'm not going anywhere based on some anonymous call." "It's not anonymous," the voice said, and I heard something that made my blood freeze. It was my own laugh, but older somehow, more tired. "You gave me this number yourself. You just don't remember giving it to me." The storage facility sat between a laundromat and a pawn shop, the kind of place you drive past without noticing. Unit 47 was in the back row, away from the main lights. The key fit perfectly. Inside, boxes lined the walls, each labeled with dates going back years, all in my handwriting. I opened the first box, bank records, employment documents, lease agreements, all bearing my name and signature, documenting a life I'd never lived. The second box contained photographs, me at places I'd never been with people I'd never met. In some photos I looked happy, in others worried. In the most recent ones I looked scared. At the bottom of the third box I found a voice recorder. The battery was still good. I pressed play. My own voice filled the small storage unit. If you're listening to this, it means you're starting to remember. Or maybe you're starting to forget again. I'm not sure which is worse. I sat down hard on one of the boxes. The voice continued. The doctors said this would happen, that I'd lose pieces of myself, that I'd wake up someday and not understand my own life. They said the treatments would help, but they just made everything more confusing. The recording crackled with static. I started keeping records just in case. Every decision, every conversation, every place I went. I thought if I documented everything, I could hold on to who I was. But looking at all these boxes now, I realize I've been living someone else's life too. The question is, which one of us is real? Outside, I could hear cars passing, normal people living normal lives. Inside the storage unit, surrounded by evidence of a life I didn't remember living, I couldn't shake the feeling that the voice on the recording was right about one thing. I was starting to remember. Not facts or events, but feelings. The sensation of being watched. The weight of secrets I couldn't name. The exhaustion that comes from pretending to be someone you're not sure you are. I took the recorder home along with a few of the photo albums. Spread across my kitchen table, they told a story I was both part of and separate from. A story where the ending kept changing, where the narrator couldn't be trusted, and where the only constant was the growing certainty that nothing was as simple as it seemed. The phone hasn't rung since that night. The rejection letters still come, but now I read them differently. Each one is a piece of a puzzle I'm not sure I want to solve, because the more I learn about the life I apparently lived, the more I wonder if forgetting was the kindest thing I could have done for myself. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself checking the locks twice, drawing the curtains tighter, listening for footsteps that might belong to someone who knows me better than I know myself. And sometimes, just sometimes, I wonder if the person who's been living my life has been doing a better job of it than I ever did. Crime 3, I know every creak, every shadow, every imperfection in this place. It's small, cheap, and familiar. But one morning the light switch was on the other wall. The closet opened in the opposite direction. The scratches under the coffee table gone. I thought I was losing it until I checked under the rug. My initials, carved with a key years ago, weren't there. In their place was a new set, not mine. I asked my landlord. He said he never had keys made for this unit. But now, sometimes at night, I hear muffled hammering behind the walls. I keep waking up with paint dust in my hair and splinters in my palms. I never touched a brush. The first thing I did was document everything. My phone became my constant companion, photographing every angle, every corner. The bathroom mirror reflected differently now. The medicine cabinet had new hinges, smooth and silent where mine had squeaked for months. I ran my finger along the edges, feeling fresh caulk that shouldn't exist. My neighbor downstairs mentioned seeing maintenance workers around my building during the day while I was at work. She described men in coveralls carrying tools and materials, but when I checked with the property management company, they had no record of any scheduled repairs or renovations for my unit. The woman on the phone sounded confused, almost defensive. She kept asking if I was sure about the unit number. I started staying awake, pressing my ear against the walls. The sounds were subtle but persistent, soft scraping like sandpaper against wood, occasional tapping, rhythmic and deliberate. Once I swear I heard voices, muffled conversations seeping through what should have been solid walls. But when I knocked back, everything stopped, complete silence that felt heavier than the noise. The coffee stains on my kitchen counter had vanished, not claimed, vanished. The wood grain looked different, newer. I knew those stains intimately. They were my mistakes, my lazy mornings, my proof that this space belonged to me. Without them, the counter felt foreign, like furniture in a showroom waiting for someone else to claim it. I found receipts in my mailbox for materials I never purchased. Drywall compound, paint primer, cabinet hardware. All paid for in cash, all signed with initials that looked eerily similar to mine but felt wrong when I traced them with my finger. The handwriting was too careful, too practiced, like someone had studied my signature and improved upon it. My sleep became fractured. I'd drift off only to jolt awake with the taste of sawdust in my mouth and the phantom sensation of someone watching me. The apartment felt smaller somehow, as if the walls had moved inward by inches while I slept. I started measuring distances, documenting the space between furniture and walls. The numbers never matched from one day to the next. The woman who lived across the hall stopped making eye contact. When I tried to ask her about the workers she might have seen, she claimed she'd been out of town for weeks. But I remembered seeing her just days before, remembered the sound of her television through our shared wall. Her denial felt rehearsed, like she'd been coached on what to say if anyone asked questions. I discovered a key hidden inside a light fixture I was certain had never been opened. It was small, silver, and warm to the touch, as if someone had just handled it. The key didn't fit any lock in my apartment, but it felt significant, purposeful. I wrapped it in tissue and kept it in my pocket, a talisman against whatever was happening to my reality. The smell hit me one evening when I returned from work, fresh paint mixed with something else, something organic and unsettling. It reminded me of the basement where I'd played as a child, that earthy dampness that clung to clothes and hair. But my apartment was on the third floor, nowhere near soil or decay. The scent followed me into every room, growing stronger near the walls. I called a friend, desperate for validation, for someone else to witness the changes. But when she arrived, everything looked normal to her eyes. She commented on how nice the apartment looked, how fresh and well-maintained. Her compliments felt like accusations. She couldn't see what I saw, couldn't feel what I felt. The disconnect was terrifying. The hammering grew bolder, less concerned with concealment. It happened during daylight now, steady and confident. I pressed recording apps on my phone against the walls, trying to capture evidence. But the playback revealed only silence, as if the sounds existed solely for my ears. The isolation was deliberate, calculated. I found photographs tucked behind my bathroom mirror, not my photographs. They showed my apartment, but occupied by strangers. A family eating dinner at my table, children playing in my living room. All the images were recent, judging by the clothing and technology visible in the frames. These people had lived in my space, used my things, breathed my air. But I had no memory of them, no explanation for their presence. The final revelation came when I discovered the door hidden behind my bedroom closet. The back panel, which I'd assumed was a solid wall, swung inward on silent hinges. Beyond it lay another apartment, identical to mine but reversed, like looking into a mirror. Every piece of furniture had its twin. Every stain, every imperfection was replicated in perfect opposition. Someone had been living parallel to me, copying my existence, perfecting my space while I slept. The sounds, the changes, the improvements, they were all preparation for a replacement I was never meant to discover. The key in my pocket grew warm as I stood in that reversed threshold, understanding finally that I might not be the original occupant after all. The hammering stopped that night. The silence felt final, complete, but I still wake with paint dust in my hair, still find splinters embedded in my palms. Sometimes I catch my reflection behaving differently in mirrors, moving just slightly out of sync with my intentions. And I wonder if the person looking back is the one who belongs here, while I remain the intruder in my own life. Crime 4, someone sent me a video, no context, just a shaky clip of a gas station holdup. The robber didn't wear a mask, same face as mine, same voice, same scar on the neck. The problem, I was out of town that night. I showed the police my receipts, my hotel check-in. They didn't care, the footage was too perfect. I even walked the way he did, but I swear it wasn't me. Then more clips started appearing, me breaking into homes, vandalizing storefronts, standing over someone collapsed in an alley. The last clip, it showed him staring into a mirror. Behind him, I was watching. The smell of stale coffee and disinfectant hit me as I walked into the police station. My hands were shaking as I held the printed screenshots from the videos. The officer behind the desk looked at me with that expression I'd been seeing everywhere, recognition mixed with suspicion. "You're him," she said before I could speak, "the one from the news." I tried to explain again. The hotel receipts crumpled in my sweaty palm. The credit card statements showing purchases hours away from where the crimes happened. But her eyes kept darting to my neck, to that distinctive scar I'd carried since childhood, the same scar visible in every video. "People make mistakes with alibis," she said, sliding the evidence back across the counter. "Technology doesn't lie." But technology was lying, or someone was making it lie. I drove home through neighborhoods where I'd lived peacefully for years. Now curtains twitched when I passed. Children were called inside. The local grocery store manager avoided eye contact when I bought milk and bread. I'd become a ghost in my own life. That night I sat in my kitchen replaying the videos on my laptop. Frame by frame I studied this other version of myself, the way he held his shoulders, the slight limp I developed after an old injury, even the nervous habit of touching my ear when thinking. Everything was perfect, too perfect. The sound of my own breathing filled the quiet room as I paused on a frame from the mirror video. There he was, my doppelganger, staring at his reflection, but in the background, barely visible in the corner of the frame, was a shadow that looked like someone watching. I called my brother. He'd been the only one who still talked to me since the videos went viral. "I need you to look at something," I said. His voice was strained. "I can't keep doing this. My wife is scared. The kids are asking questions. Just look at this one video, please." The silence stretched between us. Finally, he agreed to come over. When he arrived, I could smell his cologne mixed with cigarette smoke. He'd started smoking again, something he'd quit years ago. We sat at my kitchen table, the laptop between us like evidence at a trial. "Look at this frame," I said, pointing to the shadow in the mirror. Someone was there. Someone was recording him. My brother squinted at the screen. His fingers drummed against the table, a rhythm I recognized from our childhood when he was nervous. "It could be anything," he said. "A coat on a hook, a plant. Your mind is playing tricks." But I could see doubt creeping into his voice. He leaned closer, and I caught the scent of fear on him, sweet and metallic. "What if someone is doing this to me?" I whispered. "What if they're somehow making these videos?" He pushed back from the table. "That's impossible. Deep fakes aren't that good yet, not for full-length videos with movement and sound." Yet even as he said it, I could see him studying my face, comparing it to the frozen image on the screen, looking for differences that weren't there. After he left, I sat alone with the videos. I'd watched them so many times I could predict every movement, every word, but something nagged at me. In the gas station video, the man who looked like me had ordered a specific drink, a brand I'd never heard of. I drove to the gas station. The clerk recognized me immediately. Her face went pale, and she stepped back from the counter. "I'm not here to cause trouble," I said quickly. "I just want to ask about that drink, the one from the video." She pointed to a cooler in the back corner. "That brand. We only got it in recently. Special order." "The special order." "Someone paid us to stock it, said they'd buy cases of it." She looked around nervously. "They never came back for it. We've been trying to get rid of it ever since." My skin felt cold. Who ordered it? I don't know. They paid cash, but they knew exactly where to put it, like they'd been in here before, studying the layout. I bought a bottle of the drink. It tasted bitter, unfamiliar. Someone had planned this. Someone had prepared for months, maybe years. Someone who knew me well enough to replicate my movements, my voice, my habits. At home, I searched through old photos, old videos of myself. I needed to find the source of their knowledge. In a box of family recordings, I found something that made my hands tremble. A video from a family gathering years ago. I was talking to the camera, telling a story, touching my ear in that nervous way. The timestamp showed it was filmed at my childhood home, but I didn't remember anyone filming that day. I called my mother. "Mom, do you remember who was filming at that barbecue?" Her voice was cautious. "Which barbecue?" I described the video, the story I was telling. She was quiet for a long time. "Oh, that day, your cousin was there with that new camera. He said he was practicing for some project." "Which cousin?" "The one who moved away. Haven't heard from him in years." I felt something shift in my chest. A piece of the puzzle clicking into place, but creating a bigger, more frightening picture. "Mom, do you have his contact information?" "I can try to find it, but why are you asking? You never really got along with him." That was true. He'd always been jealous, always competing. At family gatherings, he'd study people, mimic their voices, their gestures. Everyone thought it was entertaining, a party trick. I spent the next week trying to track him down. Dead-end addresses, disconnected phone numbers, social media profiles that led nowhere. It was as if he'd erased himself from existence, or maybe he'd become someone else entirely. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The gas station clerk called me. "That man who ordered the drinks," she said. "He came back. He's here now." I drove there faster than I should have. My heart was pounding as I pulled into the parking lot. Through the window, I could see someone at the counter. From behind, he looked exactly like me. I walked in slowly. The bell above the door chimed, and he turned around. It was like looking into a mirror. Every detail was perfect, but his eyes were different. They held a satisfaction, a smugness that I'd never seen in my own reflection. "I've been waiting for you," he said in my voice. The clerk had disappeared. We were alone in the store, surrounded by the hum of refrigerators and the smell of stale coffee. "Why?" I asked. He smiled with my face, because I could, because I'm better at being you than you are. "The videos, the crimes, were necessary. I needed your life to become empty so I could fill it." I reached for my phone, but he held up his hand. "I wouldn't. The police are already looking for you. How would it look if you were caught assaulting yourself?" The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I could hear my own heartbeat, or maybe it was his. We were so identical that even our pulses had synchronized. "People will figure it out," I said. "No, they won't. I've been studying you for years. I know you better than you know yourself. Your habits, your fears, your patterns. I've become the perfect version of you." He picked up a bottle of that bitter drink and took a sip. "The only difference is, I'm not afraid to take what I want." I left the store that night with more questions than answers. He didn't follow me, didn't threaten me. He just watched me go with those eyes that weren't quite mine. The videos stopped appearing after that, but the damage was done. My reputation, my relationships, my sense of self had all been shattered. I moved away, changed my appearance as much as I could, tried to build a new life. But sometimes, in reflective surfaces, I catch glimpses of someone watching me. Someone who knows exactly how I move, how I think, how I live. Someone who might be living a better version of my life while I hide in the shadows of what I used to be. The truth is, I don't know if he was really my cousin, or if my cousin was just another disguise. I don't know how many of me are out there, or if I'm even the original. All I know is that somewhere, someone is wearing my face, living my life, and doing it better than I ever could. And the most terrifying part, sometimes I wonder if I'm the copy and he's the one who's real. Crime 5, it was cheap, out of the way, perfect for a fresh start. The owner handed me the keys through a slot in a door, never saw their face. I moved in, unpacked, started cleaning. The place was fully furnished, too clean to be abandoned, but there were no outlets in the kitchen, no windows in the bathroom, and the front door had 6 locks on the inside. When I tried to get a package delivered, the address bounced back. I searched satellite maps. Nothing, just a stretch of woods, but I'm here. I live in it. Every wall feels just a little too thick. Every sound echoes like someone's listening. The first thing I noticed wasn't the missing outlets or the strange locks. It was the smell. Not unpleasant exactly, antiseptic, like a hospital corridor but sweeter. The kind of clean that makes you wonder what needed cleaning so thoroughly. I ran my fingers along the baseboards, expecting dust, finding none. The wood gleamed under my touch, still tacky with whatever polish they'd used. I found the photographs on my 3rd day, tucked inside a cookbook that looked untouched, pages still crisp. Family pictures, but the faces had been carefully cut out with surgical precision. Just empty circles where smiles should have been. A birthday party with headless children around a cake. A wedding with ghostly silhouettes in formal wear. Someone had kept these images but erased the people. The dates on the back span decades. The silence here isn't natural, it's constructed. When I walk across the hardwood floors, my footsteps sound muffled, absorbed by something in the walls. But sometimes, late in the evening, I hear other footsteps. Not echoing, not bouncing off surfaces the way sounds should in an empty house. They sound like they're coming from inside the walls themselves. I started documenting everything, taking pictures, measuring rooms, testing every surface. The living room is 12 feet by 14 feet from the inside. From the outside, it should be 16 by 18, 4 feet missing in every direction. The math doesn't work unless there's something between the walls, something that needs space. The kitchen cabinets are all empty except for one, the third cabinet from the left, top shelf. Inside, I found 17 identical coffee mugs. White ceramic, no markings, but each one has a small chip in the exact same spot on the handle, like someone practiced breaking them the same way over and over. I tried calling the number on the lease, disconnected. The email address bounces back. The name on the paperwork leads nowhere. I drove to the address listed as the rental office, but it's a vacant lot with weeds growing through cracked asphalt. No building has stood there in years, according to the locals I asked, but someone collected my security deposit. Someone cashed my rent checks. The bathroom mirror reflects more than it should. Not supernatural, nothing like that, but the angle is wrong. When I stand directly in front of it, I can see a sliver of the hallway behind me that shouldn't be visible from that position. The mirror is mounted too high, tilted at a degree that doesn't match the wall. Someone positioned it to watch the hallway while appearing to look at yourself. I found the first recording device by accident. Cleaning behind the refrigerator, I noticed a wire that didn't connect to anything. Following it led me to a small black box tucked under the kitchen sink. Not sophisticated, just a basic voice recorder, but it was full. Hours and hours of audio, my audio, every conversation I'd had on the phone, every word I'd spoken to myself while unpacking, every sound I'd made living here. The recordings go back further than I've been here. Months of audio from previous tenants, different voices, different lives, but all living in this same impossible space. A woman who talked to her cat for hours, a man who rehearsed job interviews alone in the kitchen, a couple who argued about money every evening after dinner, all of them living where I live now, all of them recorded without knowing. I played the recordings backward, thinking I might find something hidden in the audio. Instead, I heard my own voice saying things I don't remember saying, conversations I don't remember having, phone calls to numbers I don't recognize, discussing arrangements I never made, my voice but not my words, not my memories. The basement door was locked when I moved in. The keys I received didn't fit. I picked the lock, expecting storage space or utilities. Instead, I found files. Filing cabinets full of documentation about every person who has lived here. Medical records, financial statements, psychological evaluations, reports about behavioral patterns, sleep schedules, dietary habits, studies on how people react to isolation, observation, controlled environments. My file was already there, thick as the others. Information about me that I never provided. Details about my childhood, my work history, my relationships. Photographs of me taken from angles that suggest long-term surveillance. Notes about my daily routines written in clinical language. Predictions about how I would react to living here, how long I would stay, what I would discover. The final entry in my file was dated tomorrow. It describes how I will pack my belongings and leave without telling anyone where I'm going. How I will drive until I find another place, another fresh start. How I will never mention this house to anyone because no one would believe me. How I will convince myself it was all in my head, just stress from moving, just paranoia from starting over. But I know now what this place is. Not a rental property, not someone's abandoned home. It's a study. a controlled environment designed to observe how people behave when they think they're alone, when they think they're safe, when they think they're starting fresh. The thick walls aren't for soundproofing from the outside. They're for hiding equipment, cameras, observation posts. I should leave, the file says I will leave. But leaving means admitting this happened, acknowledging that someone has been watching me, studying me, documenting my every move. It means accepting that my fresh start was just another person's experiment. It means wondering how many other places I've lived were the same, how long I've been watched, how much of my life has been real. The front door has 6 locks on the inside, not to keep intruders out, to make residents feel secure while they're being observed, to make them believe they have control while living in a cage designed to look like freedom. I could unlock them all and walk out, but the file says I will. The file knows what I'll do before I do it. Maybe that's the real experiment, not just watching how people live when they think they're alone, watching how they react when they discover they never were. Crime 6, a loose tile in the corner, started it all. Water was pooling oddly, and when I lifted the paneling, I saw hinges. Beneath the tub, a square metal door. I had to pry it open with a wrench. Inside was a vertical shaft lined with hooks. At the bottom, a small wooden platform, stained and cracked, old ropes coiled like they'd been cut. On the back of the trapdoor was a carved number 5. When I checked the basement, there were 4 more hatches just like it, each sealed, each marked. I live alone. I don't know who lived here before, but they didn't live through the front door. The house felt different after that discovery. Every creak, every shadow seemed intentional. I started researching the property records, but the trail went cold after 3 previous owners. Names crossed out, addresses that led nowhere. The realtor who sold me the place had moved overseas, according to her old office. No forwarding information. I measured the shafts. Each one dropped exactly the same depth. The wooden platforms at the bottom were identical, except for the stains, some darker than others. The hooks weren't random either. They were positioned precisely, like someone had planned their placement. The metal was old but well maintained, oiled recently enough that they didn't squeak when I tested them. The neighbors became my next focus. The woman next door claimed she'd lived there for decades but couldn't remember who owned my house before the previous sale. Her memory seemed selective. She knew the exact day her rose bushes were planted, but drew blanks when I asked about moving trucks or unusual activity. Her husband avoided eye contact entirely, always finding urgent yard work whenever I approached. I found a box of old mail in the basement, wedged behind the water heater. Most of it was standard bills and advertisements, but there were several envelopes addressed to different names. The postal dates were inconsistent, some from recent years, others much older. The handwriting on several pieces of mail was identical, despite being addressed to different supposed residents. The local post office had records, but they were equally confusing. Mail delivery had been suspended to my address multiple times over the past decade. Reasons listed as resident unavailable or forwarding address requested. Yet the house had never been officially vacant according to city records. I started keeping a journal of strange occurrences. Footsteps in the basement when I was upstairs. The smell of bleach drifting up from below, even though I never used cleaning supplies down there. My water bills were consistently higher than they should be for a single occupant. The meter readings suggested usage during periods when I was traveling for work. The breakthrough came when I discovered a hidden compartment behind a false wall in the basement. Inside were photographs, not typical family pictures, but surveillance shots, people entering and leaving my house. The timestamps showed activity during months when the house was supposedly empty. I recognized some faces from around the neighborhood, but others were strangers. Among the photographs was a business card for a cleaning service that specialized in what they called restoration work. When I called the number, it was disconnected. I traced the company name through business records and found it had been dissolved years earlier, right around the time of the last official sale of my house. The previous owner's name appeared on one document I found tucked inside a book in the basement library. A receipt for construction work, heavy excavation, concrete pouring. The contractor's signature was illegible, but the date coincided with when the Postal Service first noted delivery issues. I decided to examine the platforms and the shafts more carefully. Under better lighting, the stains weren't just random marks. They formed patterns, outlines. The wood had been sanded and refinished multiple times, but traces remained. Each platform had been used for something specific, something that required repeated cleaning. The numbered system bothered me most. Why mark them? What was the significance of the sequence? I found partial answers in a notebook hidden behind loose bricks in the basement wall. Lists of numbers, dates, and what appeared to be physical descriptions. Height, weight, other details. The handwriting matched what I'd seen on some of the old mail. My sleep became erratic. Every sound seemed amplified. The house had excellent soundproofing, I realized. Too good. Windows that didn't open from the inside. Locks that required specific keys I'd never been given. The basement walls were reinforced beyond what any normal residence would need. I started recognizing faces from the photographs around town. The woman who worked at the hardware store. The man who delivered packages to the neighborhood. They all seemed to know something about my house that I didn't. Their conversations stopped when I approached. Their smiles felt rehearsed. The cleaning service receipt led me to search for similar businesses. I found 3 other companies with nearly identical names, all dissolved around the same period. All had worked on properties that were later sold under unusual circumstances, properties that had experienced delivery issues and resident availability problems. I measured the basement again and found discrepancies. Rooms that should have existed based on the house's exterior dimensions were missing, sealed doorways behind furniture that had been bolted to the floor. The foundation was newer than the rest of the house, despite records showing no major renovations. The breakthrough that changed everything came from an unexpected source. A water damage claim filed by a previous owner mentioned flooding in areas of the basement that didn't exist according to current floor plans. The insurance adjuster's report included detailed photographs of rooms I'd never seen, rooms that had been sealed off before I moved in. I found the entrance behind what I'd assumed was a solid wall. The door was hidden behind a bookshelf that moved on well-oiled hinges. Beyond it, a hallway lined with more numbered doors, each one open to reveal a small room with a drain in the center. The walls had been scrubbed, but faint stains remained near the floor. In the final room, I found personal belongings, wallets, jewelry, identification cards, names that matched some of the old mail I'd discovered. People who had supposedly lived in my house, but whose belongings suggested they'd never left. The items were organized methodically, cataloged with the same numbering system I'd found on the trapdoors. The police came when I called them, but their investigation was brief. They claimed no evidence of criminal activity. The belongings could have been left behind by tenants. The rooms might have been used for storage. The numbered system was probably for organization. Their explanations felt prepared, rehearsed. I still live in the house. The sealed rooms remain sealed. The belongings stay where I found them. Some nights I hear water running in pipes that shouldn't exist. Sometimes the basement smells like bleach, stronger than before. The neighbors still avoid detailed conversations about the house's history. The woman next door brought me cookies last week. She mentioned that the previous owner was a quiet man who kept to himself. She'd never actually seen him leave, just assumed he'd moved when the for sale sign appeared. She hoped I was enjoying the house as much as he had. Her smile was too wide when she said it. I keep the journal now, document every strange occurrence, every inconsistency, every neighbor who seems to know more than they admit. The photographs remain hidden, but I've memorized every face. Some of them are still in the neighborhood, still watching, still waiting. The basement stays locked, the trapdoors remain sealed, but sometimes late at night I hear sounds from below, careful footsteps, quiet conversations, the gentle splash of water being poured. I don't investigate anymore. Some discoveries are better left alone. The house is quiet now, too quiet. I understand why my water bills are high, why my neighbors remember everything except what matters, why the cleaning service specialized in restoration work. Some restorations aren't about fixing what's broken, they're about hiding what happened. I won't be leaving through the front door either. Crime 7, at first I thought it was a sick prank, 1 tooth, then 3, then an entire row of molars in a velvet pouch. No blood, just polished bone. I reported it. No fingerprints, no return address. The mail carrier swore he never saw anything unusual. I changed my locks, installed cameras, but the packages kept coming. One day I opened a box and found a complete dental mold. It matched my bite exactly, but there were more teeth than I ever had in my mouth. I counted 38. And one had a gold filling. I've never had dental work in my life. The smell hit me first when I opened that dental mold package. Not decay or blood, but something clinical. Antiseptic mixed with something else I couldn't place. My hands shook as I held the plaster cast up to the light streaming through my kitchen window. The impression was perfect, down to the slight chip on my left canine from a childhood accident. But those extra teeth haunted me. 6 more than any human should have. I placed the mold on my counter and stared at it for what felt like hours. The gold filling caught the afternoon sun, winking at me like an accusation. I ran my tongue across my own teeth, counting again. 32, always 32. I'd been obsessive about dental hygiene since I was young, brushing twice daily, flossing religiously. My mouth was my own private geography, and I knew every surface, every gap. The police detective assigned to my case had tired eyes and coffee-stained fingers. She examined each package with the mechanical precision of someone who'd seen too much strangeness to be surprised anymore. The teeth were real, she confirmed, human, adult. The lab couldn't determine age or origin without more extensive testing, and that would take months. She suggested I might have a stalker with access to dental waste. Clinics threw away extracted teeth daily. Someone could be collecting them, she said, her voice flat and unconvincing. But that didn't explain the mold, that perfect replica of my bite. I started visiting dental offices in my neighborhood, claiming I needed records transferred. The receptionist at the first office, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes, pulled my file without hesitation. According to their records, I'd had extensive work done over the past 2 years. Root canals, crowns, extractions, procedures I'd never undergone, appointments I'd never made. The signature on the consent forms looked exactly like mine. My throat went dry as I stared at the paperwork. The handwriting was mine, but the memories weren't. I asked to see the dentist, but he was with a patient. The receptionist offered to schedule an appointment for the following week. I left my contact information, though my hands trembled as I wrote. That evening I sat in my living room examining the dental mold again. The gold filling bothered me most. It wasn't just any filling, it was perfectly placed, professionally done. I held a mirror up to my mouth and compared. The tooth in question was my upper left molar, completely healthy in my mouth but filled with gold in a cast. I called the dental office back and spoke to the same receptionist. Could I see my x-rays, I asked. She put me on hold for several minutes before returning with an apologetic tone. The x-rays had been damaged in a computer crash the previous month. All digital records from the past 3 years were corrupted. They were in the process of rebuilding patient files, but it would take time. The coincidence felt calculated, too convenient. I began documenting everything, photographing each tooth delivery, cataloging their condition and characteristics. Most were molars and premolars, the teeth that do the heavy work of chewing, adult teeth worn from years of use. Some had fillings, silver amalgam mostly, but a few with gold work that matched the filling in my phantom mold. The pattern became clearer as weeks passed. The teeth arrived in sets that corresponded to specific areas of the mouth. First came the lower right quadrant, then upper left, then the remaining sections, as if someone was systematically dismantling a complete set of teeth and sending them to me piece by piece. I hired a private investigator, a former police officer with gray stubble and patient eyes. He reviewed the case files, interviewed my neighbors, checked surveillance footage from nearby businesses. Nothing useful emerged. The packages appeared in my mailbox between postal deliveries, but no cameras captured anyone approaching my property during those windows. The investigator suggested something that made my stomach turn. What if the teeth were mine? Not my current teeth, but teeth I'd lost somehow and forgotten. Medical amnesia wasn't uncommon after trauma or certain procedures. People could forget entire periods of their lives. I rejected the idea immediately, but it lodged in my mind like a splinter. I started checking my teeth obsessively, running my tongue over each surface, counting and recounting. 32, always 32, but the gold filling haunted me. What if I'd had dental work and simply blocked it out? I found a different dental office across town and requested a complete examination and x-rays. The dentist, a young woman with steady hands and a professional demeanor, was thorough. She took dozens of images, examined each tooth carefully, and reviewed my oral history. According to her findings, I had perfect dental health. No signs of previous work, no evidence of extractions or procedures. My teeth were exactly as they should be. But as she handed me the x-ray films, she paused. There was something unusual about my lower jaw structure, she said. Small variations in bone density that suggested possible previous trauma or surgery. Nothing recent, but old scarring that might indicate past dental work that had been completely replaced or rebuilt. I took the x-rays home and compared them to the dental records from the first office. The bone structures were different, subtly but unmistakably. Either the records were wrong, or the x-rays were wrong, or I was looking at images of two different people. The tooth deliveries stopped as suddenly as they'd started. My mailbox remained empty of everything but bills and advertisements for weeks. I found myself checking compulsively, almost missing the strange packages that had terrified me. The silence felt more ominous than the deliveries. Then I found the video message on my phone. A recording that appeared in my messages with no sender information, no timestamp, no way to trace its origin. The image was grainy, shot in low light, but I could see a dental chair and surgical equipment. Someone was speaking, but the voice was distorted, electronically altered to an unintelligible whisper. The camera panned across a tray of extracted teeth, dozens of them sorted by type and size. Then it focused on a dental mold that looked identical to the one sitting on my kitchen counter. The same 38 teeth, the same gold filling, the same perfect replica of a mouth I thought was mine. The recording ended with an image that made my blood freeze. A close-up photograph of me, apparently asleep in a dental chair, my mouth propped open with metal retractors. I was unconscious, completely vulnerable, and someone had been working inside my mouth while I slept. I had no memory of the scene, no recollection of being in that chair in that room with those instruments in my mouth. But the photograph was undeniably real and undeniably me. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, opening my mouth wide and examining every surface I could see. My teeth looked exactly as they always had, but now I questioned everything. Memory could be unreliable. Trauma could create gaps. What if I'd undergone extensive dental work and somehow lost all recollection of it? The private investigator found nothing useful in the video file. The metadata had been scrubbed, the source untraceable. He suggested I consider the possibility that someone was gaslighting me, creating false evidence to make me question my own memory and sanity. But gaslighting required motive, and we couldn't identify anyone in my life with reason to torment me this elaborately. I started sleeping with a mouth guard, checking it each morning for signs of tampering or unusual wear. I installed additional security cameras, motion sensors, and changed my locks again, but the fear persisted. Someone had access to my mouth, my dental structure, my most intimate physical details. They'd replicated me perfectly and sent me the evidence piece by piece. The final package arrived on a rainy morning when I'd almost convinced myself the ordeal was over. Inside was a single tooth, but this one was different, fresh, still carrying traces of blood and tissue. And it was mine. I could feel the gap in my lower jaw where it had been removed. But I had no memory of extraction, no pain, no awareness that anything had been taken from me. I ran to the mirror and opened my mouth. The space was there, clean and already beginning to heal, as if the extraction had happened days earlier. But I remembered going to bed with all my teeth intact. I remembered waking up the same way. Standing in my bathroom, holding a piece of myself that I'd never consented to lose, I finally understood. The truth wasn't about who was sending me the teeth. It was about who I'd become without realizing it. Someone else had been living portions of my life, making decisions with my body, altering me in ways I couldn't perceive or remember. The gold filling winked at me from the extracted tooth in my palm. Work I'd never authorized, procedures I'd never undergone, healing I'd never experienced. But the evidence was undeniable, written in bone and enamel, documented in dental records I'd never signed. I am not entirely myself, and I may never know how much of me has been replaced, reconstructed, or removed while I slept through portions of my own existence. The teeth keep coming, but now I understand they're not threats. They're receipt. Crime 8, I was remodeling, knocking down a wall to open up space. Behind the drywall I found canisters, reels of 8 in film stacked neatly, some labeled with dates, others with numbers. I watched one. It showed a family eating dinner, not mine, but halfway through the reel the camera panned to a mirror. My reflection was in it, watching them. I hadn't even been born when the footage was filmed. I watched more reels, different families, same layout, same mirror, always my reflection. And then the last reel was labeled with my street address. I haven't had the courage to view it yet. The smell of old plaster still clings to my clothes as I write this. Dust particles float in the afternoon light streaming through my window, and every speck reminds me of what I disturbed when I broke through that wall. The sledgehammer felt heavier with each swing, as if the house itself was resisting my plans to modernize. When the drywall finally gave way, it revealed more than just empty space. The canisters were wrapped in plastic, protected from moisture and time. Someone had taken great care to preserve them. The metal felt cold against my palms, and I noticed my hands were trembling as I carried the first batch to my living room. The old projector I'd inherited from my grandfather suddenly seemed prophetic, sitting in my closet all these years, waiting for this moment. The first reel clicked into place with a satisfying snap. The leader counted down, and then I was watching strangers live their lives. A woman set plates on a dining table while children argued over seating arrangements. The father carved meat with methodical precision. Nothing extraordinary, just the mundane rhythm of family life captured on film. The quality was remarkably clear for something that appeared decades old. Then the camera moved, a slow pan across the room, taking in family photos on the walls, a bookshelf filled with volumes I couldn't read from this distance. When it reached the mirror hanging above a sideboard, my breath caught. There I was, standing exactly where I stood now in my living room, watching this scene unfold. My face, my clothes, my expression of growing unease. I rewound the film 3 times. The image never changed. My reflection remained constant while the family continued their dinner, oblivious to the presence captured in their mirror. The timestamp on the canister suggested this was filmed 30 years before I was born. Sleep became elusive. I found myself measuring walls, calculating angles, trying to understand how these films could exist. The logical part of my mind insisted on rational explanations, but the canisters sitting in my living room defied logic. I began watching them systematically, taking notes, searching for patterns. Each reel contained similar scenes, families in their homes captured during intimate moments, breakfast conversations, bedtime routines, arguments over homework. Always the same house layout, always the same mirror placement, and always my reflection, watching from what I now realized was my living room. Different clothes sometimes, different expressions, but unmistakably me. The families changed with each reel. A young couple with a newborn, an elderly man living alone talking to photographs, teenagers throwing a party while parents were away. Decades of different lives, all lived in what appeared to be the same space, all unknowingly observed by someone who wouldn't exist for years to come. I started researching the history of my house, property records, previous owners, any documentation that might explain what I'd found. The librarian helped me access old archives, and I spent hours scrolling through microfiche looking for answers. The house had changed hands frequently. Some owners stayed only months before moving on. Others disappeared entirely, leaving no forwarding address. One name appeared repeatedly in police reports from different decades. Domestic disturbances, noise complaints, welfare checks requested by concerned neighbors. The address was always the same, but the complainant's name never matched the property records. Someone had been filing reports about my house for 40 years, someone who didn't officially live there. I found myself studying the mirror in each film, trying to understand its perspective. The angle suggested the camera was positioned exactly where my couch now sat. I moved furniture, measured distances, recreated the viewpoint. The alignment was perfect. Someone had filmed these families from my living room through my wall into their space. The implications made my skin crawl. Had my house always been connected to the one next door? Was there still a passage I hadn't discovered? I began tapping walls, listening for hollow sounds, searching for hidden doors or removable panels. The house seemed to whisper back, settling and creaking in ways I'd never noticed before. My neighbor is an elderly woman who keeps to herself. I'd spoken to her maybe 3 times since moving in. Now I found myself watching her windows, wondering if she knew about the films, if she understood the history we shared through these thin walls. When I finally knocked on her door, she answered with eyes that seemed to expect me. She invited me inside without questions. Her house was exactly as it appeared in the films, down to the mirror placement. We sat in her living room while she made tea, and I could feel the weight of my own living room just beyond the wall. The distance between our lives measured in inches of drywall and decades of secrets. She spoke about previous tenants with the familiarity of someone who had watched them all, knew their routines, their problems, their private moments. She described arguments I had seen in the films, celebrations that had played out on my projector screen. Her memory was precise, unsettling in its detail. When I asked about the films, her expression shifted. She said recording had been necessary, that someone needed to document what happened in that house. The families never stayed long enough to understand, but the stories needed preserving. She spoke about protecting evidence, about truths that would otherwise disappear with each new tenant. The final canister bears my address, written in the same careful handwriting as all the others. It sits on my coffee table now, heavy with implications I'm not ready to face. The woman next door mentioned that every tenant eventually finds the films. Part of the house's rhythm, she said. Part of what makes the walls so thin between past and present. I can hear her moving around next door as I write this. The same sounds that appeared in the background of so many films. Footsteps, running water, the creak of floorboards worn smooth by decades of observation. She knows I haven't watched the final reel yet. She's waiting, just as patient as she's been for all these years. The camera is probably still there, hidden somewhere in my walls, recording this moment for the next tenant to discover. My reflection will join the others, captured in mirrors I've never noticed, preserved in films I'll never see. The house keeps its own records, and I'm just the latest entry in a catalog of lives lived unknowingly on display. Tomorrow I'll watch the final reel, or maybe I won't. Maybe some truths are better left in their canisters, sealed away behind walls that were never meant to be broken down. But the weight of not knowing feels heavier than the weight of whatever that film contains. The dust has settled now, but the smell of disturbed plaster lingers. And in the quiet moments between my typing, I can hear the soft whir of machinery, the mechanical heartbeat of a camera that never stops recording. Crime 9, they knocked on my door, polite but firm, asked if I'd seen anything unusual. I said no. Then one of them asked how often I used my basement. I told them I didn't have one. The agent's face tightened. He pointed to a blueprint. There it was, a basement directly under my living room. I pulled up the carpet and found a trapdoor sealed shut with thick nails and adhesive. It took hours to open. Inside were cold stairs and the smell of rot. At the bottom, a cot. A stack of newspapers and a Polaroid of me sleeping, taken from above my bed. The photograph felt wrong in my hands. The paper was slightly damp, edges curled like someone had been handling it repeatedly. I recognized my bedroom ceiling, the water stain I'd been meaning to fix, but the angle was impossible. Nobody could have taken this shot from where they claimed to be standing. I carried the image upstairs, my fingers leaving prints on surfaces I'd touched thousands of times before. Everything looked different now. The floorboards creaked in patterns I'd never noticed. The walls seemed thinner than I remembered. The detective called that evening. His voice carried weight I hadn't heard during our first conversation. He wanted to know about my previous tenant, the woman who lived here before me. I told him what the landlord had shared, quiet, kept to herself, moved out suddenly one winter, left no forwarding address, paid her final month in cash. But when I checked my lease agreement that night, something felt off. The dates didn't align with what I remembered. According to the paperwork, she'd moved out only 2 weeks before I moved in. Yet the landlord had told me the place had been empty for months. I called him, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Sleep became impossible. Every sound in the house took on new meaning. The heating system's occasional clicks seemed deliberate, like Morse code. I found myself listening for footsteps above my bedroom, even though I lived on the top floor of a single-story house. I returned to the basement. This time I noticed things I'd missed in my initial shock. Scratches on the concrete walls, too deep and too numerous to be accidental. A ventilation system that connected to rooms I couldn't locate from inside the house. The newspapers were all from the same month, but different years. Someone had been collecting specific editions, specific dates. The cot had an indentation that suggested regular use. When I pressed my hand against the mattress, it was still soft in the center, not the firmness you'd expect from something abandoned. Fresh water stains marked the concrete floor beneath, though I couldn't identify their source. My neighbor mentioned seeing lights in my basement windows during the weeks I'd been traveling for work, but I didn't have basement windows. When I walked around the exterior of my house, I found them. Small, rectangular openings partially concealed by overgrown bushes. From inside the basement, they'd been covered with thick black paper. The detective visited again, this time with questions about my work schedule, my travel patterns, my daily routines. He seemed particularly interested in whether I'd noticed any changes to my possessions, any sense that someone had been in my home while I was away. I told him no, but as we spoke, I realized I couldn't be certain. How would you know if someone had been living in your house, sleeping beneath your feet, watching your habits, learning your schedule? That night I heard sounds from below, not footsteps exactly, but settling noises that seemed too deliberate for an empty space. I pressed my ear to the floor and listened. Silence, then a soft thud, like someone setting down a heavy object with care. I grabbed a flashlight and descended into the basement. Everything appeared exactly as I'd left it, but the air felt different, warmer, like someone had been breathing down there recently. On the small table beside the cot, I found something new, a receipt from a local grocery store dated from the previous week. The items purchased were specific: bread, milk, batteries, duct tape. At the bottom, in faded ink, someone had written my address. The detective's theory was that my former tenant had never actually moved out, that she'd been living in the basement, accessing it through an exterior entrance I still hadn't located, that she'd been studying me, learning my patterns, possibly planning something more than simple observation. But theories don't explain everything. They don't explain why the Polaroid showed details of my bedroom that had changed since I'd moved in. They don't explain why I found my own handwriting on some of the newspaper clippings, notes I didn't remember making about local disappearances, about people who'd vanished from houses just like mine. The case remains open. The detective calls periodically, asking if I've noticed anything else, if I've found any additional evidence. I haven't told him about the dreams that started after we sealed the basement entrance. Dreams where I'm walking through my house, but the layout is different, where there are rooms I've never seen, corridors that lead to spaces that shouldn't exist. I haven't told him about the photographs I've started finding in my mailbox. Images of my house taken from angles that should be impossible, showing windows and doors that aren't there when I look for them. Pictures of myself sleeping, but in beds I don't recognize, in rooms with wallpaper I've never chosen. Sometimes I wonder if the woman in the basement was running from something, or if she was the something others were running from. Sometimes I wonder if the person living beneath my floor was someone else entirely, someone who knew things about my house that I'm only beginning to discover. The truth is, I'm not sure I want to know what really happened down there. Some answers change you in ways you can't undo. Some basements are better left sealed. Story 10. The old Polaroid held secrets within its faded borders, whispering of a past long forgotten. Among the smiling faces and flickering candles lay a hidden enigma, a mysterious figure lurking in the shadows of memory, unseen yet undeniably present. When Sarah Winters uncovered the box of memories in her mother's attic, she unwittingly unearthed a chilling enigma that would unravel the tranquility of her past. The collection of photographs, a nostalgic journey through family gatherings, should have brought solace to Sarah's grieving heart. Instead, it unfurled a haunting mystery that defied explanation. In each picture, the figure loomed closer, a silent specter moving stealthily through the frames of time. Beginning as a mere silhouette on the periphery of her 7th birthday party, the dark presence gradually crept closer with each snapshot. Unseen by the celebrants, he lingered at the edges, a ghostly interloper in the midst of joyous occasions frozen in film. Dismayed and trembling, Sarah turned to her father for answers, only to be met with disbelief and unease. The man in the photographs was a phantom, a spectral intruder in the cherished moments of her childhood, haunting the fringes of her family's history. Seeking resolution, Sarah brought her unsettling discovery to Detective Marcus Reed, a stalwart guardian of truth amidst the shadows of uncertainty. As rain tapped against the windows of the precinct, the detective delved into the enigma with a keen eye and a mind open to the inexplicable. Examining the progression of photos laid out before him, Reed traced the eerie journey of the figure through time and space, his presence growing more pronounced with each passing moment captured on film. The mystery deepened, the implications ominous and foreboding. Despite exhaustive inquiries and technological scrutiny, the identity of the shadowy figure remained elusive, his purpose shrouded in enigmatic secrecy. But Sarah's relentless pursuit of the truth yielded unexpected revelations that pierced the veil of obscurity and exposed a malevolent truth hidden in plain sight. Enhanced images revealed telling details: a scar, a ring, a reflection that pointed to a sinister connection buried in the annals of forgotten horrors. Dental records provided the final link, unearthing the identity of Robert Keller, a malefactor long vanished but not forgotten. Keller's nefarious past as a maintenance worker with access to secluded rental properties unraveled a web of darkness that stretched across decades. His presence in the shadows of family gatherings was a harbinger of unspeakable deeds, a silent witness to the tragedies that had scarred the lives of innocents. As the truth emerged, so did the grim reality of lost lives and shattered families. Remains unearthed near the vacation properties bore witness to the atrocities committed, bringing closure to long-dormant mysteries, but opening fresh wounds of sorrow and regret. Alone in her apartment, Sarah gazed at the final birthday photo, the figure's inscrutable gaze fixed upon her younger self with a chilling intensity. The candles cast a warm glow on the faces of her family, oblivious to the malevolent presence lurking in their midst. The box of photographs, once a testament to cherished memories, now stood as a repository of darkness and despair, a stark reminder that evil often wears a mask of invisibility, moving unseen through the corridors of time. The shadow in the family photos, once a spectral enigma, had been unmasked by the relentless pursuit of justice, his legacy of malevolence exposed to the light of truth. And though the revelations brought closure to a chapter of unsolved mysteries, the echoes of the past lingered in the silent spaces between the frames, a haunting reminder of the unseen forces that shape our lives. Story 11. In the stillness of the night, a phone call echoed through the abandoned house, a call that shouldn't have been possible. Detective Morgan Reed couldn't shake the feeling of unease as she listened to the recording, the voice of a woman filled with desperation and fear. The mystery unfolded like a dream, elusive and enigmatic, drawing Morgan deeper into its enigmatic embrace. The house once belonging to the Sullivan family stood silent and forgotten, a relic of the past. Yet the phone on the dusty kitchen counter glowed with an otherworldly light, a beacon in the darkness. The call had come from beyond, a connection to a world long gone. As Morgan delved into the investigation with her partner, Detective Walsh, they uncovered a tale of loss and tragedy. The phone, once owned by Catherine Sullivan, whispered secrets from the grave, a spectral voice reaching out from the shadows of the past. The evidence was as perplexing as it was chilling. The phone, untouched by human hands, bore the imprint of a ghostly presence, a reminder of a life cut short. The whispers of the dead lingered in the air, a haunting melody that stirred the soul. Through interviews and research, Morgan unearthed a story of love turned to obsession, of a woman trapped in a web of deceit. Mark Jennings, Catherine's former boyfriend, emerged as a figure shrouded in darkness, his alibi crumbling under the weight of truth. But it was Catherine's mother who held the key to the mystery, a journal filled with the echoes of a life lost too soon. The pages spoke of fear and betrayal, of a love twisted into something sinister and deadly. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, a grim truth emerged. Mark's facade cracked, revealing a heart blackened by malice and deception. The buried phone, a relic of a crime long forgotten, bore witness to his sins. In a chilling revelation, Mark's true nature was laid bare, his malevolent intentions exposed for all to see. The ghostly call, a creation of his depraved mind, served as a macabre testament to his twisted desires. In the end, justice prevailed, not through the whispers of the dead, but through the relentless pursuit of truth. Mark's reign of terror came to an end, his sins laid bare for all to see. The phone in the evidence locker remained silent, a relic of a bygone era. Yet in the quiet of the night, some swore they heard it ring, a phantom echo of a voice long silenced. Catherine's story, a tale of darkness and redemption, lived on in the hearts of those who sought justice. Her voice, though silenced by death, echoed through the halls of time, a reminder that even in the darkest of nights, the truth will always find a way to shine. Story 12. The Enigmatic Disappearance. The calf had become his sanctuary over the years, a place of quiet contemplation and routine. Each day, he would occupy the same secluded table, order the same black coffee, and immerse himself in a world of solitude. The barista recognized his face, but the man's true identity remained a mystery to all. Then, one fateful day, he failed to appear. When the authorities investigated his usual spot, they stumbled upon a forgotten wallet. Inside, a driver's license bore a face without a name, an address, or any hint of identity. The enigma deepened as security footage revealed a baffling truth. The man had entered, had sat down, but had never departed. Detective Sarah Mercer delved into the perplexing case, her fingers tracing the cold metal table as she analyzed the footage repeatedly. The elusive figure, now dubbed John Doe, seemed ordinary at first glance. Average in stature, unassuming in appearance, clad in a navy coat with a weathered messenger bag slung over his shoulder. Yet his vanishing act defied logic and reason. "Replay it," Mercer urged the tech expert. The footage replayed the mundane sequence of events: John's entrance during the bustling morning rush, his customary order, his retreat to the shadowed corner table. He wrote in a weathered notebook, occasionally gazing out the window as he sipped his coffee. Then the pivotal moment arrived. He left for the restroom corridor, but he never returned. "Inspect the restroom footage," Mercer instructed. "There's a catch," the specialist confessed. "He never set foot in any restroom. We've combed through every angle to no avail. It's as if he evaporated into thin air." Back at the precinct, Mercer meticulously spread the contents of the wallet across her desk. The driver's license photo mirrored the enigmatic man, yet the personal details were conspicuously absent, replaced by voids. Credit cards devoid of names, only strings of numbers leading to phantom accounts. Neatly stacked cash, a coffee shop receipt from days prior, and a solitary blank business card with a faintly printed phone number. Upon dialing the number, Mercer was met with silence, punctuated by the rustle of paper before the line abruptly severed. The barista's memories offered scant insights. He seldom spoke, but was unfailingly polite, always alone, deep in thought, perhaps possessed an accent, though his voice was a mere whisper. "Did he ever engage in conversation with anyone here?" Mercer inquired. "Never, always solitary, engrossed in his notebook," the barista recalled. The cryptic notebook, brimming with cryptic symbols and sketches of unfamiliar architectural designs, confounded even the most seasoned code breakers. Mercer dispatched officers to scour the vicinity with John Doe's image. No recognition surfaced, no missing persons report matched his description, and his fingerprints eluded all databases, almost as if he existed solely within the CAF's confines. Throughout her investigation, Mercer discerned an anomaly in the security footage. Each morning, a flicker marred the timestamp when John entered, a detail the tech expert dismissed as a glitch. Unconvinced, Mercer revisited the CAF, settling at his vacant table to observe the entrance and the corridor leading to the restrooms. Suspended between them hung an ancient mirror, adorned with cryptic symbols akin to those in John's notebook. Upon questioning the CAF owner about the mirror, Mercer unraveled a startling revelation. "It's an artifact of yore, predating my tenure, never relocated nor claimed," the owner divulged. Curious, Mercer approached the mirror, her reflection distorted in its antiquated glass. A touch revealed an unexpected warmth, prompting the arrival of forensic experts. Upon dismantling the mirror, a concealed compartment emerged, housing identical wallets with faceless driver's licenses and a leather-bound journal inscribed with entries spanning decades, mirroring the notebook's enigmatic contents. The final entry forewarned, "The experiment nears its end. They draw closer. The portal is waning." Fingerprints, all matching John Doe's, adorned the concealed space. Carbon dating unveiled the wallet's antiquity, yet the photo depicted an ageless visage. The journal chronicled experiments in temporal displacement and identity transference, hinting at the CAF's pivotal role as a nexus where realities converged. As peculiar occurrences unfurled around the CAF, customers reported eerie reflections and phantom sightings of John Doe. The breakthrough arrived when an elderly physicist, Margaret Keller, disclosed John Doe's true identity as Daniel Weston, a brilliant scientist who delved into quantum mirrors and parallel realities. Returning to the CAF, Mercer unearthed its historical nexus to Weston's vanished laboratory. The investigation climaxed when Mercer, scrutinizing the security footage alone, glimpsed a spectral duality, in the mirror a chilling tableau of two coexisting Daniels. Racing to the CAF, Mercer found the shattered mirror, amidst which lay a cryptic farewell note scribed by Weston, The experiment concludes, the gateway seals shut, venture not into the unknown. The mystery of the man who eluded existence remained unsolved as the calf shuttered, the building razed, and Weston's fate obscured in the annals of time. Amidst the enigma's aftermath, Mercer, consumed by an insatiable quest, mirrored Weston's fervor in her solitary musings. An antique mirror fragment adorned her wall, its surface occasionally rippling in unseen currents, a silent testament to a saga that transcended the boundaries of reality. Story 13. In the old apartment, peculiar sounds echoed through the walls, pipes groaned, floorboards whispered secrets in their creaks. But the new tenant, Sarah, sensed something more unsettling beneath the surface of these familiar noises. The footsteps she heard in the dead of night were too precise, too deliberate to be mere echoes of the building settling into its age. Living on the top floor, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the phantom footsteps came from above. Night after night, their slow cadence traced eerie paths across her ceiling. One night, brimming with a courage born of desperation, she tentatively tapped the ceiling with a broomstick. The footsteps halted abruptly, swallowed by the silence of the empty darkness, and then a single knock reverberated back from within the ceiling itself. Sarah kept the chilling incident to herself, attributing the sounds to the quirks of an old building or perhaps a rogue animal seeking refuge in the attic. As the mysterious footsteps persisted, she adapted, drowning them out with the blare of the television, cocooning herself in headphones at bedtime, anything to shield her from the haunting footfalls that traversed her ceiling like a spectral dance in the night. Detective Morris was drawn into the enigmatic tale of the apartment when a maintenance worker stumbled upon a concealed passage while attending to routine repairs. Behind a section of drywall outside Sarah's unit, a hidden crawl space emerged, a clandestine world unbeknownst to the building's occupants. Within this secret realm, a makeshift living space unfolded before their eyes. Discarded wrappers, empty water bottles, a tattered blanket, and a weathered notebook bearing witness to an unseen observer. The notebook chronicled intricate details of Sarah Coleman's life, her routines, her guests, her meals, her entertainment choices. Neat handwriting gradually devolved into erratic scrawls interspersed with cryptic symbols. The final entry read like a chilling prelude to an unsettling revelation. The subject no longer responds to my signals. She has chosen to ignore me. No one ignores me. Forensic experts delved into the hidden passages, unearthing fingerprints that defied identification in any database. A labyrinth of covert pathways woven into the building's walls and ceilings unraveled before them, connecting multiple apartments but converging upon one destination, Sarah Coleman's residence. Residents past and present were interviewed, their accounts painting a tapestry of unease. Former tenants of Sarah's apartment whispered of feeling watched, of unexplained disturbances that had driven them away in silent terror. A pattern emerged, a pattern of fear and silence that had cloaked the building in a shroud of mystery for years. The investigation took a dark turn with the discovery of microscopic blood traces in one of the hidden spaces, a grim link to Martin Weaver, a missing former resident whose fate had long eluded scrutiny. Martin's abrupt disappearance, following a confrontation with a reclusive neighbor named Edward, cast a shadow of suspicion over the elusive figure. Edward's shadowy past unfurled like a sinister tapestry, revealing a trail of transient existence across multiple apartment complexes. His unsettling fixation on silence and seclusion hinted at a mind consumed by unseen obsessions. A remote cabin exposed the depths of his macabre pursuits, adorned with chilling mementos of lives observed and extinguished. As the truth unfurled like a sinister bloom, Cadaver dogs led investigators to the chilling evidence buried beneath the earth, a graveyard of lost souls, echoes of Edward's insidious legacy. The hunt for the elusive figure, now known as Edward Mercer, intensified, his shadow stretching across state lines, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and unspeakable horrors in his wake. Sarah Coleman, lost to the shadows of a predator's gaze, became a haunting symbol of the unseen dangers lurking within the familiar walls of everyday life. Detective Morris, haunted by the specter of those phantom footsteps in the night, found himself staring up at his own ceiling, a silent sentinel in a world where shadows danced in the dark, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to fall into their grasp. And in the stillness of the night, the question lingered whose footsteps echoed in the void, listening, waiting, and watching unseen. Story 14. In the quiet depths of an attic, they stumbled upon it concealed beneath a worn blanket, a porcelain doll of antiquity. Its blue eyes, painted and unyielding, gazed out into the world, a world unknown to them. Sarah and Michael, a couple captivated by the allure of a Victorian home steeped in enigmatic whispers, laughed away the doll's presence as just another forgotten relic of yesteryears. Yet as night draped its mysterious cloak upon them, a subtle unease crept in, thickening the air and elongating the silence. Morning light revealed a startling sight: the doll, once nestled in the attic's shadows, now perched at the foot of their bed, a silent sentinel of the night. Their tale drew the attention of Detective Rachel Winters on a crisp autumn day. The master bedroom unveiled a haunting scene: the female victim, contorted in a macabre pose, eyes wide with fear; the male victim, a tragic figure frozen in his flight to escape. No forced entry, no signs of struggle marred the scene, only the haunting perfection of a meticulously staged tragedy. With a hushed reverence, Detective Winters noted the deliberate positioning of the victims, akin to dolls plucked from a sinister display. Each clue unearthed, each detail captured by the lens of forensic scrutiny, painted a chilling narrative of a mystery bound by unseen threads. Whispers of neighbors echoed through the investigation, a fleeting shadow observed where none should be, childish laughter that danced through the empty house's halls in the dead of night. Threads of antique fabrics clung to the air, woven into the very essence of the house, leading the investigators to a chilling revelation. The past of the property unfurled like a sinister tapestry. Previous owners met their demise under shrouds of enigma, their restless spirits whispering of antique toys materializing from thin air, phantom footsteps echoing through deserted rooms. A faded newspaper clipping whispered of a doll maker's tragic tale, his final creation an eerie replica of his departed daughter. As Detective Winters delved deeper, a pattern emerged: a connection between the victims and the house's attic, a space steeped in dark secrets. Old photographs, relics of a bygone era, revealed the doll maker's haunting collection, with a doll mirroring the one discovered by Sarah and Michael. Images frozen in time hinted at a malevolent sentience, the doll shifting positions between frames, a silent specter in the night. Infrared scans unveiled a spectral trail of tiny handprints, unseen to mortal eyes, leading from the attic to the master bedroom, a chilling testament to a presence beyond comprehension. Family rumors whispered of arcane rituals binding spirits to objects, of dolls crafted with more than mere porcelain and cloth. The investigation spiraled into the abyss of the unknown, defying conventional logic and eluding the grasp of justice. The doll, a harbinger of misfortune, vanished from the confines of evidence, leaving behind only questions shrouded in shadows. The house, a silent witness to the unfolding tragedy, changed hands once more, its attic now a void, save for a solitary blanket nestled in a corner, a silent homage to forgotten horrors. Detective Winters, haunted by the case, retired into the veils of obscurity, carrying with her a secret locked away in a photograph, a legacy of the doll maker and his spectral creations. And as the world moved on, whispers lingered in the stillness of the night, a phantom laughter, a fleeting shadow, a reminder of mysteries unsolved, of a doll lost to time, and the chilling legacy it left in its wake. Story 15: The Strange Mask. In a sleepy town where time seemed to linger in the shadows, there was a costume shop that whispered of forgotten tales. Its shelves now barren, remnants of a bygone era being sold off piece by piece. Among the relics of the past, a woman drawn by an unseen force reached out and lifted a mask that beckoned to her from a dusty shelf. Its delicate features held a haunting resemblance to life, a beauty that chilled the soul. As she placed the mask upon the worn counter, the cashier's eyes widened in silent realization. "That's not ours," he murmured, a shiver in his voice. Perplexed, the woman sought a tag, but none could be found. With a nonchalant shrug, she carried the mysterious mask to her humble abode, unaware of the darkness that lingered within its porcelain facade. That fateful night, a soft sound roused her from slumber, a whisper like silk brushing against the wind. Her eyes fluttered open to find the mask perched upon her nightstand, its gaze fixed upon her with an unspoken message. The woman, known as Catherine Reed, would never be the same. It was her neighbor who stumbled upon the chilling scene the next morning, the front door ajar, inviting the morning light to dance through the threshold into the silent home. A borrowed book clutched in hand, the neighbor's footsteps faltered as they beheld a sight that would haunt their dreams for nights to come. Catherine, once vibrant and alive, now lay motionless upon the cold bedroom floor, the mysterious mask nowhere to be seen. Detective Morgan arrived, a shadow in the dimly lit room, as forensics meticulously documented the eerie tableau. Amidst the hushed whispers and the rhythmic clicks of the shutters, the detective's keen eyes caught details that others overlooked. A drawer slightly ajar, a lipstick-stained glass abandoned on the nightstand, ordinary, yet tinged with an unsettling aura of the unknown. The medical examiner, his expression grave, found no immediate cause of death upon initial inspection. No visible wounds marred Catherine's skin, no signs of a struggle to be found. Yet it was her frozen expression of terror that spoke volumes to the seasoned investigator. "She was frightened to her core," the detective murmured, a chill creeping down her spine. Catherine, an art appraiser by trade, known for her meticulous eye and unwavering dedication to authenticity, had met a fate beyond comprehension. Security footage from the forsaken costume shop unveiled a truth stranger than fiction. The cashier's confusion mirrored the shop's secrets as he denied any knowledge of the haunting mask, a mask that seemed to transcend time and space, an enigma from a realm long forgotten. The shop owner, wringing his hands in turmoil, revealed a dark secret buried within the shop's history. The mask, an anomaly in a world of facades, had appeared during a clearance sale, a relic of a collector's demise under mysterious circumstances. Forensics uncovered a clue that led the investigation down a winding path of intrigue. Microscopic fibers, foreign and enigmatic, clung to Catherine's fingertips, a silent testament to her final struggle. Human hair intertwined with an organic substance that defied identification, a puzzle with pieces lost to time. The threads of fate intertwined as the detective delved deeper into the shadows of the past. Similar deaths, shrouded in silence, whispered of a sinister connection. Each victim, each mask, a chapter in a macabre tale of horror and despair. A retired detective, burdened by the weight of untold truths, shared a revelation that shattered the fragile peace. Ancient symbols etched within the masks spoke of a ritual as old as time itself, a ritual of soul transference that defied all reason. In a hidden alcove within Catherine's sanctuary, a journal lay concealed, its pages a testament to her descent into madness. Her words, a frantic plea for understanding, painted a portrait of a malevolent force that lurked in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victim. The truth, a shard of shattered reality, emerged from the darkness. Cardiac arrest, induced by sheer terror, claimed Catherine's fragile heart, a heart that beat its last in the face of unspeakable horror. But the nightmare had only just begun. Surveillance footage, a silent witness to the unseen, captured a figure donned in the mask's chilling visage, moving with Catherine's gait but devoid of humanity. A puppeteer's dance, a macabre masquerade played out in the dead of night. The mask, a harbinger of doom, vanished into the night, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and unspoken fears. Months passed, and whispers of its return echoed across the land, a siren call to those who dared to seek the unknown. The detective, keeper of secrets not meant for mortal ears, clutched Catherine's journal as a grim reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the veil of reality. In the stillness of night, she felt the weight of unseen eyes upon her, a presence that lingered in the periphery of her consciousness. Locking her windows, securing the doors, she willed herself to forget the mask that waited in the shadows, biding its time until it found a new host, a vessel for unspeakable horrors, a conduit for ancient evils that whispered of a past stained in blood. The mask, a silent sentinel of chaos, lay in wait, hungry for the souls that danced on the edge of oblivion. And when it found its next victim, another unsuspecting soul would awaken to the soft sound of movement in the dark, to find themselves ensnared in a nightmare from which there could be no escape. Story 16. In the midst of renovations, peculiar discoveries are often unearthed. Old relics of the past, remnants forgotten by time. Yet when the couple pried up the floorboards of their Victorian-era home, they stumbled upon a hidden treasure, a letter tucked carefully beneath the aged wood. The paper was fragile, the ink faded, but the words stood out boldly. Don't trust the one who knocked. Before they could process this cryptic message, a series of 3 sharp knocks reverberated through the silent house, sending shivers down their spines. Sarah and Michael had been captivated by the charm and history of the estate they acquired at an auction, never foreseeing the unsettling turn their renovation project would take. Detective Alina Reed, with her seasoned partner, arrived on the scene to investigate, the exposed floorboards revealing a dark void below. With gloved hands that bore the marks of countless investigations, Reed gingerly retrieved the note, already tainted by the couple's touch. As Sarah and Michael recounted the chilling knocking sound, Reed scrutinized their faces, detecting genuine fear in their eyes. Background checks painted a picture of an ordinary couple, newlyweds with pristine reputations and stable lives. However, the house harbored a tangled past. Once belonging to the Hargrove family for generations, it had stood empty for 2 years following the passing of the last inhabitant, the solitary widow Margaret Hargrove. Neighbors remembered Margaret as a recluse yet amiable, with no known enemies or suspicious circumstances surrounding her demise, attributed to natural causes. Yet an unsettling aura lingered. Forensic analysis dated the letter back 2 decades, its distressed handwriting hinting at fear or urgency. At the time, Margaret, in her 60s and living with her late husband Franklin, had penned the ominous warning. Franklin, a retired teacher with a penchant for woodworking, was regarded with respect in the community. However, a former student recalled a shift in his demeanor towards the end of his teaching career, paranoia and mentions of a mysterious watcher. The investigation took a crucial turn during Reed's interview with Margaret's sister, whose fading memory unveiled a chilling truth. Margaret feared him near the end, she divulged in a hushed tone. Not Franklin, but the man who knocked, the collector. Reed pressed for more details, and the pieces of the puzzle began to align. Franklin's gambling debts had attracted the attention of a menacing figure named Victor Mercer, a lone shark and collector gone missing 2 decades ago. Margaret's diaries, clandestinely stowed in the attic, shed light on the harrowing events that transpired. Franklin's confrontation with Mercer had turned fatal, leading to a grim secret buried beneath the house. Forensic excavations unearthed a male skeleton, identified as Mercer, concealed beneath the foundation. His demise, a result of a violent altercation, had remained a mystery for years. The closure of the case brought a semblance of justice, with Mercer's remains returned to his family. Sarah and Michael relinquished the tainted property, unable to bear its sinister history. The house stood vacant, its renovations halted, as whispers circulated of eerie occurrences in the still of the night, 3 distinct knocks echoing through the empty corridors. The note, preserved in evidence, bore a stark warning: don't trust the one who knocked. Margaret's final years of solitude were plagued by the haunting echoes, the unsettling feeling that someone knew their dreadful secret. Detective Reed's conclusive report acknowledged the enigmatic nature of unresolved mysteries, where truths remain obscured by shadows of uncertainty. Story 17: The Abandoned House. The old house sat silent, untouched by life for years, shrouded in mystery and whispers of a young woman who vanished without a trace. When the new tenants ventured inside, they were met with a peculiar sight, the bedroom door sealed shut from within. With a determined effort, they forced it open, unveiling a room frozen in time, draped in a cloak of dust and forgotten memories. The air hung heavy with neglect, yet a subtle unease lingered beneath the surface. The bed neatly made, the mirror polished to perfection, and a lone candle, now extinguished, stood as a relic of a forgotten vigil. But it was the notebook, its pages filled with the ink of a lost soul, that beckoned their attention. As Detective Morgan delved into the notebook's contents, a tale unfolded before him, written by the hand of Elise Winters, a young woman who had vanished into the night 5 years prior. Her meticulous handwriting chronicled a growing sense of unease, culminating in a chilling final entry. "I know he's watching me tonight," it read, revealing a haunting truth that had been buried in the shadows. The room bore witness to a tragedy shrouded in silence. Elise, a diligent paralegal entangled in a web of deceit and betrayal, had uncovered dark secrets within the corridors of power. Her disappearance, a mystery that haunted the house like a ghostly echo, left behind a void waiting to be filled with answers. Forensic experts combed the room for clues, uncovering a trail of deception and corruption. Elise's pursuit of truth had led her down a treacherous path where powerful forces sought to silence her voice and erase her existence. The room itself held secrets, concealed within its walls and hidden passages, waiting to be unearthed. The discovery of hidden files, clandestine recordings, and a trail of financial deceit painted a picture of greed and malice that had consumed Elise's world. The truth she sought to expose lay buried beneath layers of deception, waiting for justice to unveil its dark visage. As the investigation unfolded, a sinister figure emerged from the shadows, the enigmatic Vincent Harriman, a man of influence and power, whose hands were stained with the blood of those who dared to defy him. His web of lies unraveled, revealing a tapestry of betrayal and manipulation that had ensnared Elise in its grasp. The unraveling of the mystery led to a reckoning, as Harriman's crimes were laid bare for all to see. Justice, though elusive, found its mark as the truth emerged from the shadows, casting a light on the darkness that had consumed Elise's world. The house, once a sanctuary for secrets, now stood as a monument to the courage of a woman who dared to challenge the forces of corruption. Her legacy, etched in the walls and whispers of the past, served as a reminder that even in death, her voice could not be silenced. And so the house remained a silent sentinel, guarding the memory of Elise Winters and the truth she sought to reveal. The echoes of her story whispered through its empty halls, a testament to the enduring power of justice and the resilience of those who dare to seek it. Story 18. Once upon a time, a faint flicker danced across the baby monitor screen like a secret trying to break free. The mother, half asleep, brushed it off as a glitch in the system. But then the crackling static filled the room and a hushed voice murmured, "SHHH, drift back into slumber." A shiver ran down her spine, awakening a primal fear within her. With a racing heart, she dashed to her son's room, only to find the crib barren, devoid of the warmth of her precious child. The room remained undisturbed, the window sealed tight, the door locked securely. The only anomaly was the stuffed rabbit, lying innocently on the floor, its unblinking black eyes fixed on her, as if witnessing a secret only it knew. Rebecca's scream pierced the night, tearing through the silence until her voice turned raw with agony. The neighbors, startled by her cries, summoned help, and soon the nursery was filled with flashing lights and questioning gazes. Clutching the rabbit to her chest, Rebecca swayed on the floor, lost in a nightmare made real. Samuel, her 4-month-old son, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that echoed in the stillness. The investigation began, shrouded in shadows of doubt and suspicion. How could someone slip into a fortified home, snatch a child, and vanish without a trace, leaving behind only a haunting whisper and a stuffed toy as a silent witness? The spotlight turned to Rebecca, a mother whose grief seemed too composed, too detached for a heart shattered by loss. Her husband, Daniel, returned from his travels, his presence casting a new shadow over the unraveling mystery. Whispers of discord in their marriage mingled with the revelation of Rebecca's hidden battles with postpartum struggles. The threads of their lives, once woven together in love, now frayed with suspicion and uncertainty. As the investigation delved deeper, a glimmer of hope emerged from the darkness, a clue so small yet significant. Microscopic fibers, foreign to their home, clung to the nursery windowsill, hinting at a clandestine entry from outside. The focus shifted, unveiling a shadowy figure captured in faint glimpses by surveillance cameras, a phantom moving unseen through the night. A single footprint in the soil, marked by a unique tread, pointed to a skilled intruder, a ghost in the night skilled in the art of silence. Daniel, once the grieving father, now bore the weight of scrutiny upon his shoulders. His hands revealed traces of a newfound hobby, rock climbing, a pursuit born of hidden tensions and restless nights. The puzzle slowly unraveled as financial secrets and hidden truths came to light. A second family emerged from the shadows, a web of deceit spun by a man with darkness in his heart. The baby monitor, once a beacon of reassurance, now held the key to unlocking the truth. Its digital eyes revealed a breach, a violation of trust that led investigators to a chilling discovery: a basement harboring a stolen child, tended to by a phantom from the past. Elaine, a specter from Daniel's history, emerged from the shadows, her presence a haunting echo of loss and longing. The pieces fell into place, revealing a tapestry of betrayal and greed woven by hearts consumed by darkness. The trial unveiled a symphony of deceit, each note played by a perpetrator caught in the web of their own making. Whispers of a whispered voice, a cough in the dark, painted a picture of a crime so heinous, so unfathomable, that it shattered the illusion of safety and trust. Daniel and Elaine, architects of their own downfall, faced the consequences of their sins, their fate sealed by the echoes of a stolen innocence. As the dust settled, Rebecca and Samuel embarked on a journey of healing, leaving behind the shadows of the past to embrace a future bathed in light. The baby monitor stood silent, a sentry of truth in a world of shadows and lies. Its gaze, fixed on the past, bore witness to a tale of loss and redemption, of darkness and light. And as the night descended, cradling the world in its embrace, Rebecca held the stuffed rabbit close, its glassy eyes reflecting a truth that transcended words, a truth that only the heart could understand. And in that moment of quiet reflection, as the world drifted into dreams, the mystery of that fateful night whispered its final secrets, lulling the listener into a realm of serenity and peace. Story 19. In the midst of a storm that rattled the old house, Rebecca Morgan found herself reluctantly ascending to the attic. Water seeped through a leak in the roof, urging her to confront the forgotten space above. The attic greeted her with a shroud of dust and cobwebs, concealing relics of the past. Amidst the shadows, an eerie sight awaited her, a dollhouse exquisitely detailed, its miniature furniture arranged with meticulous care. Yet, as she peered closer, unease crept into her being. The figures within were not mere dolls. They were delicate, hand-carved replicas of her own family. Each tiny figure mirrored her family members accurately, each one placed exactly as they were downstairs. But one figure stood out. The figure meant to represent her stood by the attic door, defiant and out of place. Running her finger over the dollhouse's roof, Rebecca felt the imprint where the small wooden figure stood, a chill coursing through her despite the draft swirling through the attic. The presence of the dollhouse puzzled her. This wasn't the house of her childhood. It was a rented property her family had recently moved into. Alarmed and disturbed, Rebecca wasted no time in alerting the authorities. Law enforcement swiftly arrived at the suburban residence, where they encountered a family in distress, unwilling to return to the upper floor. Detective Sarah Harmon took charge of the investigation, initially dismissing the situation as a prank or the product of an overactive imagination. However, the intricate details of the dollhouse left her unsettled. Each miniature figurine captured unique traits of the family members, down to the smallest details. Forensic analysis uncovered fingerprints on the dollhouse belonging to an unknown individual. Even more chilling were the microscopic cameras hidden in the eyes of each miniature figure, all connected to a sophisticated surveillance system concealed beneath the dollhouse. Reviewing the family's movements, investigators discerned a disturbing pattern. The positions of the figures not only mirrored the family's current whereabouts, but also replicated past instances, indicating a prolonged period of observation. The discovery of a concealed basement entrance behind a pantry wall led investigators to a makeshift living area where evidence suggested someone had been residing long before the Morgans moved in. Surprisingly, there was no sign of forced entry, raising questions about the intruder's origins. Property records revealed the house had stood vacant for a year prior, following the passing of the elderly previous owners. Interviews with neighbors yielded little information, except for occasional sightings of lights in the empty house. A breakthrough in digital forensics traced the surveillance data to an apartment across town belonging to Martin Wells, the son of the deceased homeowners. Inside his residence, walls adorned with photographs of various families and meticulous journals detailing their routines painted a disturbing picture. A workshop filled with unfinished dollhouses representing different homes in the vicinity unveiled the extent of Wells' obsession. During interrogation, Wells remained eerily composed, attributing his actions to a need for control over his childhood home. His possessive delusion drove him to monitor and manipulate the lives of unsuspecting tenants, turning them into mere playthings within his intricate dollhouse world. The psychological evaluation highlighted his deep-rooted issues of loss and control, leading to a series of criminal charges. As the case unfolded, the Morgan family chose to relocate, haunted by the realization that their lives had been meticulously observed and manipulated. Rebecca, in particular, grappled with the unsettling truth that they had been mere pawns in Wells' twisted game. The court proceedings revealed the extent of the violation the family had endured, prompting a reevaluation of real estate disclosure laws and privacy regulations. The lingering question remained how many families had fallen victim to Wells' voyeuristic schemes before Rebecca's discovery. The chilling prospect of being watched continued to haunt her, prompting her to rid their new home of any semblance of miniature replicas. Despite their physical distance from the old house, the psychological scars endured, leaving Rebecca to wonder if somewhere, someone still held her figurine in a dollhouse unseen and waiting. Story 20. The gentle current caressed the river that peaceful morning, its surface as smooth as glass, undisturbed by even the slightest ripple. The fisherman, lost in his thoughts, almost overlooked the strange sight of a solitary suitcase floating near the shore. Initially, he mistook it for a pile of discarded clothes left by the careless. However, as he drew closer, a pungent odor assaulted his senses, thick, suffocating, impossible to ignore. The case was encased in chains, its once shiny edges now stained with the telltale marks of rust. When the authorities pried it open, they were met not by garments, but by strands of hair, fingers twisted in a frozen grip, and at the very bottom, a haunting message: "This isn't the first." Detective Sarah Mercer stood at the scene, a handkerchief pressed delicately against her nose as she surveyed the grim tableau before her. The victim, a woman in her mid-30s with dark tresses and pallid skin now tinged with the effects of water exposure, lay motionless. The medical examiner went about his work meticulously, capturing every detail before the body was respectfully removed. What struck Mercer most profoundly was not the manner of disposal, but the extraordinary care that had been taken with the victim's appearance, her nails impeccably manicured, her hair styled recently, her attire luxurious and meticulously chosen. "She wasn't taken here," Mercer observed quietly, her gaze fixed on the gentle lapping of the water against the muddy bank. She was prepared, presented. The victim was soon identified as Catherine Walsh, a successful real estate agent renowned for her expertise in selling upscale properties. Divorced, childless, she resided alone in an affluent neighborhood. Colleagues painted a portrait of her as driven, detail-oriented, and fiercely private. Her disappearance had been reported by her assistant when she failed to show up for a crucial showing with affluent clients. She would never miss that appointment, the assistant insisted adamantly during the interrogation. That sale was meant to be her crowning achievement. Investigators meticulously combed through Walsh's sleek, modern home. Everything was in its rightful place, almost unnaturally perfect. Designer furnishings meticulously arranged, not a speck of dust in sight. The refrigerator housed neatly organized meals in identical containers, each labeled by day. Her closet revealed a meticulous arrangement of clothing by color, shoes nestled in protective covers. The only anomaly was discovered in her home office, a slightly ajar drawer. Inside, a leather-bound journal awaited their discovery. The final entry read, "He's watching again. Same car, different plates." A digital delve into Walsh's email unveiled a curious pattern, numerous messages from unfamiliar addresses, all bearing the cryptic phrase, "I see your perfection." Each message sent at precisely the same time on varying days. Her browsing history revealed repeated searches for home security systems and personal safety devices. Mercer connected these fragmented pieces with the evidence at the crime scene, the calculated positioning of the body, the meticulous presentation. "Our perpetrator is methodical," she remarked to her partner. "This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a carefully orchestrated ritual." The breakthrough emerged from an unexpected quarter. A local pawnshop proprietor recognized Walsh's distinctive emerald necklace, absent from her belongings. The individual who had pawned it was a regular customer, Michael Linden, an unassuming maintenance worker with a quiet demeanor. Surveillance footage captured Linden's repeated entries into Walsh's building over several months, at times with his maintenance cart, at times without. Always during periods when she would be absent, showcasing properties. Upon searching Linden's modest abode, detectives were met with a chilling sight: the walls adorned with photographs of Walsh and other women, all sharing a striking resemblance, all captured without their knowledge. Some images were crossed out in red ink. Walsh stood as the third victim in his macabre collection. Concealed behind a false panel in his closet, investigators unearthed a shrine. Personal effects of each victim meticulously laid out: a hairbrush with strands entwined, tissues stained with lipstick, keys, and receipts. Each assembly accompanied by a small notebook chronicling daily routines, preferences, habits. The interrogation room fell silent as Linden was escorted in. Despite his neat appearance and soft-spoken demeanor, there was an unsettling air about him. When confronted with the damning evidence, his composure remained unaltered. "They were flawed," he admitted at last, his voice devoid of emotion. "They projected an image of flawlessness, but I saw through the facade. Catherine's left drawer was always in disarray. She missed a spot while applying her lipstick. Her perfection was a charade." The quest to locate the initial two victims referenced in his note led the investigators to isolated locations where two additional suitcases were retrieved. Enclosed within were women bearing a striking resemblance to Walsh, both real estate agents who prided themselves on their meticulous attention to detail. During the trial, Linden sat stoically, his countenance a mask as prosecutors unraveled his meticulous methods. For months he had shadowed each woman, studying their routines, infiltrating their homes, dissecting their lives. When he eventually seized them, he sought to rectify what he perceived as their imperfections, washing and styling their hair, applying makeup with precision, dressing them in finery before extinguishing their lives. The families of the victims sat in silent vigil as the judge pronounced a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. For Detective Mercer, the case was officially closed, yet enigmas lingered. What had triggered Linden's fixation on these specific women? What flaw within himself was he attempting to expunge through his malevolent acts? The river meandered onward, its waters gradually erasing all traces of the tragedy. However, in the precinct upon Mercer's desk lay duplicates of those chilling notebooks, a haunting reminder that within seemingly ordinary lives, shadows may lurk beneath the veneer. And sometimes the most perilous predators are those who dwell in plain sight, observing, awaiting the moment when a solitary imperfection unveils itself. Story 21. The mysterious delivery sat innocently on Sarah Miller's doorstep, a cardboard box shrouded in morning dew, devoid of a return label or tracking number. It wasn't intended for her, the name on it unfamiliar, belonging to a certain Daniel Whitaker. Despite this, curiosity gnawed at her, urging her to unravel the contents within. With hesitant fingers, she tore open the box, expecting mundane items, but finding instead a VHS tape and a solitary sticky note with a cryptic message: "Watch alone." The weight of the tape felt strangely heavy in her hands, as if it carried secrets too weighty for its small form. Surrounded by the ordinary sounds of suburban life, Sarah hesitated before bringing the package inside her home. The tape bore the name of a man she had never heard of, sparking a conflict between her curiosity and her instincts. Yet the allure of the unknown prevailed, and she inserted the tape into her outdated VCR. As the screen flickered to life, static gave way to a dimly lit room, casting shadows over a man identified as Daniel Whitaker. His voice, tinged with urgency, spoke of innocence in the face of a grave accusation. He detailed a sinister plot to frame him for a murder he claimed he did not commit, a tale woven with threads of deception and betrayal. Meanwhile, Detective Eliza Ramirez found herself entangled in a web of deceit as she delved deeper into the case. The appearance of multiple tapes bearing Whitaker's desperate plight hinted at a truth far more complex than initially perceived. As she uncovered the victim's involvement in a high-stakes whistleblower case against a pharmaceutical giant, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Sarah Miller's involvement deepened as she received a second package, filled with damning evidence that shed light on the dark machinations at play. Collaborating with Detective Ramirez and other recipients of the mysterious tapes, they traced a trail of breadcrumbs leading to the heart of the conspiracy. In a dramatic turn of events, a storage unit revealed the smoking gun, a journal outlining the insidious plot, implicating high-ranking officials within the pharmaceutical company. Justice, slow but inexorable, was served as the truth emerged from the shadows, vindicating Whitaker and exposing the malevolent forces at work. As the dust settled, Sarah found herself face to face with a man once branded a criminal, now a symbol of resilience in the face of injustice. Their brief exchange on her porch echoed with the weight of what had transpired, a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. In the end, the VHS tapes stood as tangible reminders of a journey marked by deception and redemption, a testament to the enduring power of curiosity and the courage to seek out the truth in the face of adversity. Story 22. The inn stood there, a relic of the past, a haven for fleeting visitors seeking respite for a single night. The receptionist slid the key across the counter with a peculiar glance. "Just avoid the final door on the left," his words barely audible. Intrigue sparked within her. That evening, navigating the shadowy corridor, she hesitated by that door. The brass handle sent shivers down her spine, chilling her fingertips. To her eyes, it appeared no different from the others until she leaned in, pressing her ear against it. From the other side, a soft, rhythmic breath whispered. Awakening from her slumber, Detective Morgan Reed found herself beneath the yellow tape marking the threshold of a crime scene. The scent assailed her senses, first coppery and acrid, a fragrance all too familiar. Bloodstains tainted the threadbare carpet, saturating its fibers to a near-black hue. Within the room, a stark contrast unfolded, a pristine bathroom, an untouched bed, and the ghastly sight in between. A young woman lay motionless on the floor, golden locks splayed like a halo around her. Her vacant gaze fixed on the ceiling, frozen in a silent scream of surprise or fear. Reed knelt beside the victim, mindful not to disturb the evidence markers scattered across the scene. "Third one this season," remarked the forensic expert, his voice detached and clinical as he captured images from various angles. "Same modus operandi as the others." Reed offered a silent nod. The victim adorned in elegant attire, a stark disparity against the backdrop of this forgotten inn. A designer purse lay open on the nightstand, its contents untouched. This was no mere theft. There lay a deeper motivation driving this assailant. The hotel manager lingered anxiously by the doorway, his complexion drained of color. "She arrived alone, paid in cash. I never imagined," his voice faltered. "The maid discovered her during room service." Reed surveyed the room once more. No signs of forced entry, no defensive wounds on the victim. She had either welcomed her killer willingly or recognized them. Back at the precinct, Reed pinned photographs to the board, 3 women, each bearing a striking resemblance, all discovered in nondescript motels off the beaten path. Speculations swirled in the media. Whispers of a serial predator took root in the community. "The autopsy results are in," announced Detective Hayes, dropping a file on Reed's desk. "Death by manual strangulation. No trace of DNA beneath the victim's nails. No signs of sexual assault." Furrowing her brow, Reed concluded, "This isn't a crime of opportunity. It's personal, deeply personal." Days blurred into nights as the investigation gained momentum. Surveillance footage from the inn yielded no significant leads. The victim, identified as Elaine Werner, a meticulous financial analyst with no known adversaries. Her acquaintances portrayed her as cautious, methodical, a woman unlikely to choose such lodgings willingly. A breakthrough emerged during Reed's interview with Werner's sister. She mentioned a man from her workplace, the sister divulged, hands trembling around her cup. "Someone enigmatic. I suspect he was married." Reed leaned in attentively. "Did she disclose a name?" "Just C," the sister disclosed. The inquiry pivoted towards Werner's office. Colleagues depicted her as reserved, professional, with no hint of a romantic involvement. However, a business card tucked within Werner's desk calendar led to Charles Emerson, senior vice president. Emerson portrayed the epitome of composure during questioning, concerned, cooperative, maintaining a calculated distance. His alibi appeared airtight, a dinner engagement with his spouse and another couple, yet a flicker in his gaze unsettled Reed. "Did you have a personal relationship with Elaine Werner?" she inquired casually. A fleeting expression crossed Emerson's features, imperceptible to an untrained eye. "Strictly professional." Later that week, forensic analysis linked partial fingerprints from Werner's belongings to Emerson. Confronted with the evidence, his fa-de crumbled. "We were involved," he confessed, "but it was over. She threatened to expose me to my wife." "Was that reason enough to end her life?" Reed probed. Emerson's countenance hardened. "I never set foot in that inn." Yet records contradicted his claim. A credit card transaction for the adjoining room, paid using a corporate card linked to his firm. Within that room, a concealed camera was discovered in a shared vent, the evidence stacked against him. Fibers from Emerson's distinctive suit matched those found on Werner's body. His DNA lingered on a watered glass in her room. Further scrutiny of his home computer unveiled comparable recordings of the prior victims. A pattern emerged. Emerson targeted women resembling his younger wife, luring them to designated motels, always selecting the room adjacent to the last door on the left, a room prepped with surveillance equipment. He recorded their encounters, then returned to erase the evidence, the women themselves. In the interrogation chamber, Emerson's fa-de crumbled entirely. "They jeopardized everything," he murmured. "My standing, my marriage, my existence." The trial unfolded swiftly, captivating spectators within the sterile courtroom. Emerson displayed no remorse, his mask of indifference mirroring his demeanor in the corporate realm. The gavel fell, delivering a sentence of life imprisonment without parole. As officers escorted him away, Reed caught his gaze. For a fleeting moment, she glimpsed not a spark of humanity, but its void and absence where empathy should have resided. Dubbed the door on the left case by the media, psychologists delved into Emerson's psyche. True crime enthusiasts dissected every detail. Yet for Reed, the case remained unclosed. Occasionally, traversing hotel corridors, she found herself tallying the doors, pondering the enigmas concealed behind them. Within the evidence vault, secured from prying eyes, lay 3 identical in keys, tagged and archived physical tokens that certain doors, once opened, could never be shut. Story 23. In the quiet suburban neighborhood, a mysterious key arrived in the mail, wrapped in a plain envelope with no return address. The homeowner, Sarah Miller, found it peculiar yet strangely familiar. Despite her attempts, the key didn't fit any of her locks. However, when placed on the coffee table, the broken grandfather clock chimed a single, eerie tone, sending shivers down Sarah's spine. Reporting the strange event to the authorities set off a series of events that would unravel a chilling criminal investigation like no other in the neighborhood's history. Initially dismissed by the responding officer as a simple mistake, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Reluctantly, the officer took the key as evidence, unknowingly setting in motion a chain of events that would lead to a dark and disturbing truth. Detective Robert Harmon, a seasoned investigator with a keen intuition, took over the case. The brass key sat on his desk, exuding an unsettling aura. Background checks on Sarah revealed nothing suspicious. She was just an innocent recipient of a sinister object. The forensic team found no fingerprints on the key except Sarah's, and the envelope offered no clues except for a generic postmark. A breakthrough came when Harmon discovered a match for the key's unique pattern in a cold case file from 7 years ago. The key had been linked to a storage unit where gruesome evidence of unsolved crimes had been found. Photos of unidentified women, blood-stained carpet, and cutting tools painted a dark picture. The original investigation had hit a dead end with no suspect in sight. As the investigation progressed, Sarah's anxiety grew, leading her to fortify her home with increased security measures. The key seemed to be a haunting reminder of a sinister presence lurking in the shadows. With a fresh analysis of the evidence, a distant familial match led investigators to Harold Jenkins, a former neighbor of Sarah's with a troubling past. Jenkins, a man with a quiet demeanor and a history of evading detection, became the focus of a nationwide manhunt. The discovery of a hidden room filled with brass keys, each marking a victim, revealed the extent of his atrocities. The community was gripped by fear as the hunt for the keymaster intensified. The chase culminated in a tense standoff in the wilderness, where Jenkins met his end, leaving behind a journal detailing his crimes and a final message for Sarah. The investigation uncovered a trail of 32 victims, bringing closure to families but leaving scars that would never fully heal. Sarah, forever changed by the darkness that had touched her life, never returned home. The grandfather clock's mysterious chime was revealed to be a chilling act of surveillance, a reminder of the predator who had been watching her every move. The case stood as a stark reminder of the hidden dangers that can lurk behind a facade of normalcy, prompting ongoing research to prevent similar horrors in the future. In an evidence locker, a collection of silent brass keys bore witness to the lives lost, each key a symbol of the devastating truth that sometimes the most unspeakable evil can hide in plain sight, waiting to be unlocked. Story 24. The wooden plank shifted beneath her, revealing a hidden secret waiting to be uncovered. Intrigued by the slight movement, she knelt down and traced the edges with her fingertips, sensing a mysterious void beneath. The floor, once seemingly solid, now held the promise of a concealed truth. With delicate precision, she lifted the boards, unveiling a shadowy, narrow space that lay hidden beneath her new abode. In the dim light, she spotted a mattress, a chair, and in the corner, a weathered notebook filled with pages bearing her name repeated endlessly. Detective Morgan Reed watched as Sarah Coleman peered into the darkness, her eyes betraying a fear that transcended mere surprise. It was a violation of security, an intrusion of malevolence into what should have been a fresh beginning for Sarah. "Leave everything untouched," Detective Reed's voice was steady, commanding. She flicked on her flashlight, casting light into the hidden chamber. The walls were adorned with surveillance photographs of Sarah, capturing her every move entering buildings, conversing with friends, a shrine of obsession hidden beneath her very feet. Sarah had acquired the quaint cottage from the estate of Walter Green, an elderly recluse who had passed away with no known kin. The property had sat vacant for months before Sarah's purchase, described in the listing as charming and in need of minor updates. No mention of the sinister secrets lying dormant beneath its floors. "I never met him, the previous owner," Sarah's voice was a whisper. "The neighbors said he kept to himself. I was told the basement access had been sealed off long ago. That's what the inspection report stated." Crime scene investigators descended upon the scene, their tools clattering against the wooden floors as they surveyed the hidden room. They meticulously documented the evidence, photographing, collecting, and eventually removing the mattress, chair, and notebook from their clandestine resting place. Forensic analysis unveiled a plethora of fingerprints, all belonging to the deceased Walter Green. What haunted investigators was the timeline they reconstructed. Through utility records and dated photographs, it became apparent that Walter had been observing Sarah for at least 3 years before his demise. He had shadowed her, unknowable to her, blending in the background of her life. The fixation typically escalates, the department psychologist remarked during a debrief. From fantasy to planning, the hidden chamber speaks of preparations for something more sinister. Detective Reed's inquiry took a twist when she interviewed Walter's former colleague from the local shopping center maintenance crew. The man, visibly agitated, revealed Walter's fixation on Sarah. He used to mention her, said she reminded him of someone. "I thought it was harmless, just an old man's infatuation. I never imagined." Reed obtained a warrant to search Walter's workplace locker, which unearthed a key leading to a storage unit registered in his name. Inside, a replica of Sarah's former apartment awaited them: furniture, decor, a mannequin mirroring her presence, a calendar marked with a foreboding date, signifying a twisted notion of togetherness. Walter's troubled past surfaced, revealing a history of institutionalization due to an obsession with a teacher. His release had ushered in decades of quiet existence until Sarah unknowingly reignited his dangerous fixation. At the police station, Reed spread crime scene photos across the table. In his mind, they were destined to be together, a connection he believed to be divine. Sarah, overwhelmed by the revelation, chose to part ways with the house, forever tainted by Walter's sinister shadow. As she stood in the empty room with her realtor, she pondered the near miss, the unknowable horrors that lay beneath her feet. The investigation concluded after Walter's death, labeled as stalking with intent to abduct. Sarah found solace in a new beginning, guarded and vigilant. Detective Reed kept an occasional watchful eye, a silent vow to protect the one who had narrowly escaped a perilous fate. The cottage found new occupants, oblivious to its dark past. The hidden room was sealed, the secrets buried once more. Life carried on, but for those privy to the truth, the tale of the room beneath the floor lingered as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the unseen perils that lurk, of monsters who fade into the shadows, and of the unsuspecting victims who narrowly evade their grasp. Story 25. The town whispered of the house at the edge of the woods, a place never openly acknowledged. It stood solitary, its windows cloaked in darkness, the porch bowed beneath the weight of time. No one laid claim to it, no memory lingered of its builder. Yet when a band of wanderers strayed too near, they beheld a peculiar sight, names etched into the wooden walls, carved deep like ominous secrets. Among them, at the end of the list, a fresh name gleamed, unfamiliar to all. Until a quivering voice broke the silence, "That name is mine." Under the veil of night, a call came in, catalogued by dispatch as a routine trespassing incident. The voice on the line belonged to Mason Wright, the leader of the hikers who stumbled upon his own name engraved on the abandoned dwelling. The responding officers anticipated mere mischief, a juvenile prank perhaps, yet what a weight did them defied logic. Detective Sarah Keller arrived as twilight descended upon the forest. Her flashlight pierced the shadows, revealing the worn face of the structure. The names, 27 in total, cascaded down the eastern wall. Some faded into obscurity with age, blending into the wood's weathered hue. Others remained sharp, as if freshly carved. And at the base, Mason Wright, the incision still fragrant with the scent of fresh wood shavings. "Never set foot here before," Mason maintained, his words materializing as mist in the crisp air. "I cannot fathom how my name came to be known." Thus commenced the inquiry, delving into the backgrounds of each name inscribed. The finding sent shivers through the investigative team. Every name belonged to an individual reported missing over the past 40 years. Some cases had gone cold, while others remained open. Yet all shared a chilling commonality: the vanished souls had been solitary hikers. Forensic experts meticulously documented each carving, noting the varying depths, techniques, and weathering patterns. The eldest name, Rebecca Hansen, aligned with a missing persons case from 37 years past. The archived files recounted a young woman who ventured into these very woods, never to return. Search parties unearthed naught but a lone hiking boot by a babbling brook. Detective Keller interrogated Mason at length. His account remained unaltered. He possessed no ties to the area beyond this particular trek with his 4 college companions. They had chosen the trail at random, guided by an online suggestion. Nothing in his history linked him to the other names adorning the wall. Attention shifted to Mason's comrades. Emily Chen, the group's photographer, supplied snapshots taken during their journey. Upon scrutiny, analysts unearthed a disquieting detail: a blurred figure lurking in the background of 3 separate images. A tall, slender shape perpetually obscured by the foliage. "We encountered no one else on our path," Emily attested. "We would have remembered." Detective Keller sanctioned a search of the house's interior. The edifice appeared abandoned, each surface coated in dust, furniture in disarray. Yet in the cellar, a grim tableau awaited discovery. Personal effects of the missing hikers were meticulously arranged on wooden shelves: watches, backpacks, cameras, wallets, each item labeled with a name corresponding to those on the exterior wall. Technicians cataloged the evidence with precision. Beneath the glare of ultraviolet light, traces of blood materialized on the concrete floor, stains of years past, a futile attempt at eradication. While no bodies lay interred beneath the structure, as per ground-penetrating radar, cadaver dogs persistently signaled near the densely wooded rear of the property. As the investigation sharpened its focus, Mason Wright displayed peculiar behavior. He recounted eerie incidents, whispers in the night, fresh footprints leading to his abode but not away, shadowy figures observing from the street. A guard was assigned for his protection, yet Mason's paranoia burgeoned. A breakthrough emerged when buried land records surfaced in county archives. The house had once belonged to Victor Blackwood, a hermitic hunter. Neighbors spoke of fleeting encounters with a disquietingly tall, gaunt man who shunned conversation. Blackwood vanished 15 years prior, his disappearance unscrutinized. Detective Keller secured a warrant to probe deeper into the encircling forest. The search party uncovered a network of rudimentary hunting blinds strategically stationed along popular trails. Within one blind lay a journal chronicling meticulous observations, hiker descriptions, their routes, gear, and routines. The script mirrored samples from Blackwood's scant documents. Entries grew increasingly unsettling over time. Early pages delineated hunting strategies for fauna. Later passages detailed humans as quarry, their behaviors, vulnerabilities, and the means of their acquisition. The final entries expounded on stalking each victim on the wall, including elaborate accounts of target selection. A manhunt for Blackwood unfolded across multiple jurisdictions. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging scoured the forest canopy. Tactical units combed every crevice and hollow, yet the quarry eluded capture. Mason Wright ceased answering calls. Responding officers found his residence deserted, the threshold ajar. Upon his bedroom wall, a fresh inscription loomed: "The hunter becomes the hunted." The search for Mason endured fruitlessly for weeks. Then, during a follow-up sweep of Blackwood's abode, forensic technicians unearthed a nightmarish trove. Concealed behind a false panel in the cellar, a workshop lay dormant, housing woodworking implements, jars of preservatives, and a freshly carved wooden slab bearing a new name yet to be affixed to the exterior. The name was instantly recognizable to Detective Keller, the lead forensic technician who had processed the house initially. The technician feigned illness that day, unreachable by phone. Authorities established an unbroken surveillance cordon around the dwelling. Cameras surveilled each approach. Motion sensors stood vigilant for intrusions. The snare was set. 3 nights later, sensors sounded an alarm. Surveillance footage captured a figure emerging from the forest, impossibly tall and lithe, moving with uncanny fluidity. The figure advanced directly toward the house, indifferent to the scrutiny. As tactical units closed in, the cameras briefly faltered. Upon restoration, the figure had vanished. To this day, the house remains under ceaseless watch. Neither Mason Wright nor the forensic technician have been located. The inquiry persists, with fresh resources allocated as akin disappearances arise in wooded realms. The names on the wall have transcended lore among law enforcers. Some officers shun their mention, others evade the case entirely. Local hikers skirt the house, fearful that merely speaking of it might consign their names to that accursed list, the names unuttered. Story 26. In the quaint Victorian-era home, Michael and Sarah Klein embarked on a journey they never anticipated. The peeling wallpaper in the master bedroom seemed innocuous at first, a simple water stain, a yellowish discoloration spreading across the floral pattern. But as they gingerly peeled back the layers, a different tale unfolded before their eyes. Beneath the surface of paisley prints from the 1970s and striped paper from a bygone era, a haunting discovery awaited them. Scrawled in dark ink, a name repeated endlessly: Eleanor Winters. The name danced across the wall in a frantic, uneven script, each stroke bearing a weight of desperation. "Eleanor Winters," Sarah whispered, her voice barely above a breath, fingers tracing the haunting letters. The mystery of this unknown name gripped their hearts, sending shivers down their spines. With a sense of unease settling in, Michael delved into the depths of online archives, seeking answers that seemed to elude them. The name Alina Winters yielded minimal results until a digitized newspaper article from decades past surfaced, a missing persons case shrouded in mystery, frozen in time. The photograph accompanying the article depicted a young woman with dark hair and piercing eyes, a woman strikingly similar to the one who had handed them the keys to their new abode, Margaret Cavendish, the previous owner. As the pieces of the puzzle began to align, an unsettling realization crept into their minds. Margaret Cavendish, the enigmatic seller, bore an uncanny resemblance to Alina Winters, the missing woman from years gone by. The echoes of the past reverberated through the halls of the old house, whispering secrets long buried. Their curiosity bloomed into a relentless obsession, leading them down a path lined with shadows of the past. Night after night, they delved deeper into the tangled web of connections, peeling back the layers of time to unravel the truth hidden within the walls of their home. The renovation project paused, morphing into a fervent quest for closure, for justice. They traced Margaret Cavendish's footsteps through the corridors of history, unearthing a trail of enigmas that seemed to defy logic and reason. A retired detective, a forgotten cold case, and a name etched in ink, Alina Winters. The threads of the past intertwined with the present, weaving a tapestry of intrigue that drew them further into the enigma that enveloped them. Forensic teams descended upon their home, turning it into a stage for a macabre dance of science and secrets. The wallpaper, once a mere backdrop to their lives, now held the key to unlocking a truth long concealed. Beneath the floorboards, a hidden chamber revealed a trove of identities, each one a facet of a fractured psyche. Alina Winters, Margaret Cavendish, they were but pieces of a puzzle that only now began to take shape. As the investigation unfolded, a chilling revelation emerged, reshaping their reality in ways they never imagined. The walls bore witness to a tragedy that transcended time, a tale of obsession and identity lost in the labyrinth of a fractured mind. Alina Winters, Rebecca Eldridge, the lines blurred, identities intertwined in a dance of deception and despair. The truth, a fragile thread woven through the fabric of lies, threatened to unravel the carefully constructed facade that hid a dark and twisted reality. In the end, as the sun set on their once charming home, Michael and Sarah stood witness to a reckoning long overdue. The walls whispered their secrets, the earth beneath their feet bore witness to a truth that had eluded them for far too long. And as the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place, they knew that their home, once a sanctuary, had become a silent witness to a tale of tragedy and transformation, a place where the past and present collided in a symphony of shadows and light. Story 27, The Enigmatic Echo. She cleared the mist from the mirror, fixing her gaze on the reflection before her. Yet an unsettling feeling crept in. Her features appeared normal, her attire unchanged. But the longer she peered, the more a sense of disquiet enveloped her. A flicker caught in the periphery of her vision, a motion that defied explanation. And as she turned away, her reflection remained motionless, observing. Rebecca Thorne's enigmatic journey commenced in that eerie moment within her bathroom. What transpired next would baffle investigators and linger in the thoughts of a community for years to come. In a modest apartment nestled in a tranquil suburban enclave, Rebecca led a solitary existence. Known for her meticulous nature and reserved demeanor, she traversed life with precision, her interactions with neighbors polite yet minimal. Occupying the role of a data analyst at a mid-sized firm, her days unfolded in a realm of routines and order. No hint existed that she would soon become enmeshed in one of the most mystifying criminal enigmas of the era. The initial signs were subtle. Minor items within her abode seemed displaced, nothing missing, merely rearranged. A mug shifted to a different shelf, books rearranged on a whim, her toothbrush oddly placed by the sink. At first, she dismissed these anomalies as lapses of memory, consequences of prolonged hours spent staring at glowing screens. Detective Marion Shaw entered the fray when Rebecca, after enduring weeks of these disturbances, finally reached out to the authorities. Initially deemed non-criminal, perhaps a matter for mental health services rather than law enforcement, Shaw cataloged the complaint among a stack of lower priority cases. Tangible evidence was absent, Shaw later recounted. No signs of forced entry, no missing possessions, just a woman sensing a disturbance in her sanctuary. The turning point arrived with the mirror incident. During her subsequent interaction with law enforcement, Rebecca narrated the event vividly, the eerie dance of her reflection, the persistent sensation of being watched while alone. This time she presented proof, footage captured by a security camera she had installed, focused on her entryway. The recording unveiled a revelation that sent shivers down even the most seasoned officers' spines. The grainy visuals depicted Rebecca departing for work in the morning, yet 20 minutes later an identical figure to Rebecca employed a key to access her residence. Forensic experts scrutinized the footage for traces of tampering or digital manipulation, finding none. The intruder moved with Rebecca's mannerisms, attire, even carrying her distinct leather bag. However, Rebecca was already present at her workplace across town, as evidenced by time-stamped footage from her office's security system. "We are facing a doppelganger scenario," Detective Shaw disclosed to her superiors. An individual who has meticulously studied Miss Thorne, capable of mimicking her with chilling precision. The investigation escalated. Fingerprints within the apartment exclusively matched Rebecca. No foreign DNA surfaced. Neighbors reported routine sightings of Rebecca, nothing out of the ordinary. Mrs. Keller, a neighbor, recollected a peculiar encounter with Rebecca, receiving no response upon greeting her return home, an anomaly, yet not deemed alarming. Rebecca commenced a log of disturbances. Minor alterations within her living space multiplied. Unexplained food vanished from her fridge. Her computer displayed searches she hadn't conducted. Most disconcerting were the photographs on her phone, self-portraits resembling her, yet taken without her recollection. In some images, her expression appeared subtly awry, the smile too broad, the gaze too intense. "I feel as though I am descending into madness," she confided to Detective Shaw during their third meeting. Or perhaps someone is orchestrating this illusion. Breakthrough emerged as investigators discerned a pattern in the security footage. The doppelganger solely infiltrated when Rebecca departed for specific engagements, therapy sessions, yoga classes, Sunday morning grocery runs, predetermined activities with predictable durations. "An individual intimately familiar with your schedule," Shaw elucidated. "This isn't haphazard, it's calculated surveillance and infiltration." A forensic psychologist posited a fixation theory, a person fixated on becoming Rebecca, assuming her existence, potentially aiming to supplant her entirely. While rare, such cases were documented in psychological annals. The culprit typically experienced a psychological fracture, fixating on a target embodying coveted traits: stability, beauty, success, normalcy. The investigation narrowed upon Rebecca mentioning a former co-worker, Lily Winters, terminated due to escalating erratic behavior. Lily had collaborated closely with Rebecca, often remarking on their resemblances. Post-dismissal, she dispatched a series of unsettling emails to Rebecca, one proclaiming, "We could be mirror images. At times, I feel more like you than yourself." Detective Shaw secured a warrant to search Lily's dwelling. Unveiled within transformed the case from perplexing to harrowing. A chamber within Lily's abode had metamorphosed into a shrine-like replica of Rebecca's bedroom. Walls plastered with photographs, countless snapshots of Rebecca entering her abode, shopping, socializing, all captured unbeknownst to her. A closet harbored replicas of Rebecca's wardrobe. Makeup mirroring Rebecca's preferred brands adorned a vanity, accompanied by meticulous notes on her idiosyncrasies, speech patterns, and daily routines. Most incriminating were the practice videos. Lily had recorded herself mimicking Rebecca's gait, gestures, expressions. The evolution was evident, initial attempts clumsy and conspicuous, later iterations nearly indistinguishable from the authentic Rebecca. "She aspired to usurp my identity," Rebecca murmured upon viewing the evidence. "She wasn't merely imitating me, she aimed to obliterate me." Forensic specialists unearthed sophisticated apparatus for forging keys and replicating electronic access cards. Lily had orchestrated an intricate system to monitor Rebecca's movements, including a calendar predicting her timetable with precision. However, Lily's ultimate objective eluded investigators. Journals discovered in her abode contained disjointed entries alternating between first and third person, at times addressing Rebecca as me and her within the same paragraph. The final entry sent chills down spines. "Soon, only one shall endure. The stronger entity will prevail." Upon authorities moved to apprehend Lily, she had vanished. Signs of a hurried departure lingered in her residence, drawers ajar, certain technology absent. A nationwide alert ensued. Rebecca transitioned to protective custody, relocated to a secure refuge under constant surveillance. Over 3 weeks, officials monitored every locale linked to her previous life. Lily remained elusive. The case veered into its unsettling denouement when a security guard at Rebecca's former workplace reported an anomaly. Despite being on leave, Rebecca had been sighted entering the establishment. Surveillance footage affirmed it. A figure mirroring Rebecca had entered the building with a valid ID, proceeded to her former workstation, and pored over files for 40 minutes before exiting. Simultaneously, the real Rebecca resided in seclusion at a guarded sanctuary, rendering her office visit implausible. The grim reality materialized. Lily hadn't fled, she had made her move. She now inhabited Rebecca's existence, seamlessly slipping into her skin while the authentic Rebecca remained concealed. The case lingered as an open chapter. Lily Winters eluded capture. Rebecca Thorne refrained from revisiting her past life, opting to forge a new identity in undisclosed quarters. Detective Shaw retained a photograph on her desk, 2 figures strikingly alike. One portrayed Rebecca Thorne, the other Lily Winters. Occasionally she scrutinized their visages, seeking disparities, any subtle cues that could differentiate one from the other. The true terror, Shaw imparted to fledgling detectives, isn't in resembling someone or sounding akin to them. It lies in the desire to assume their identity so intensely that one effaces themselves in the endeavor. Identity transcends mere appearance, it embodies our most guarded essence. Sometimes its worth becomes apparent only when threatened with theft.